Alrighty, greetings and salutations everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff and welcome to our Saturday afternoon live stream for Week 11 of the 2024 fantasy football season. Over the next hour plus, we're answering any and all fantasy football related questions going into Week 11. And for those of you who have an upcoming trade deadline or potentially want to hit the waiver wire, you can potentially ask those questions as well. I'm here to help in any sort of facet. Now, in regards to your questions, when you send them in, whether it is in the live chat and or super chat, make sure you include your scoring format, half PPR, full PPR standard. The more context you provide, the easier it will be for me to answer your question and somebody else potentially in the chat. There are very generous members of the community that are also in the live chat answering questions. I trust them wholeheartedly. So outside of that, let's get into answering questions. Again, we'll be here having fun, and hopefully we can get ourselves one step closer to setting our lineups first and foremost, but then eventually in Week 11, hoping everything goes correctly tomorrow, capturing a victory and getting us one step closer to the fantasy playoffs and, of course, a championship. Okay. We begin the day with the first question from Ozzy. Ozzy, thank you very much. Ozzy says, in a full PPR, Andrew, Knox or Kraft, also Allen or Goff. Okay. As of right now, I have Kraft ahead of Knox. Probably by tomorrow morning, I could theoretically change that, but I probably won't. I'd probably still stick with Kraft in that circumstance, considering the Bears matchup. I think is still very favorable, and his consistency as of late in comparison to Kraft, who is being shoved into a greater role, which again, he's not the starting tight end. He is still capable of great numbers, but I'd prefer to play Kraft between the two. Now, as for Allen and Goff, if it's Josh Allen and he's available, I'm starting him. There's very seldom times in which I would not start him in a given week. This isn't one of those weeks, even though he plays against Kansas City. I'd expect Josh Allen to step up to the task on hand. So yeah, Josh Allen is the preferred between those two quarterbacks. Thank you, Ozzy. Have a good one. Tim H sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew, in the half PPR scoring format, flex 1 between Dobbins and Tillman. Let me see where I had them ranked. Okay, so here's the thing. First and foremost, Cincinnati's been pretty good in terms of stopping the run. And as we all know, the the secondary of the New Orleans Saints has been injured. They do get Kool-Aid McKinstry back this week. Between the two of them, honestly, I would rather play Tillman. Thank you. If it was a full PPR, I'd feel a little bit more confident on the matter, but in a half between Dobbins and Tillman, I could justify, considering they're in the same tier, I could justify the idea of playing Dobbins ahead of him, but as of right now, based on the adjustments I made last night, I'd rather play Tillman at the moment. Thank you. Ocho sends in a question, says in a half PPR, Knox or Disley? Okay, between those two, it's a little bit tricky, right? Because as you guys can see from the thumbnail of today's episode, we have, the one and only Justin Herbert, and then Will Disley's in the top left corner sitting over there. Because I honestly think this weekend, in terms of underdog, taking higher on his receptions or yards, one of those two are going to hit. Maybe both. You never know. Again, he got himself so much target opportunity as of late. And typically, I think over the course of this season, the stat is like he's being targeted on 35+% of the routes that he's running. So whenever he's on the field running a route, expect the ball to go in his direction. Now, between the two of them, as it currently stands, I do have Knox ahead of Disley. Ever so slightly. Like tomorrow, once tomorrow morning comes by, again, I will be live streaming starting at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Tomorrow's rankings, Knox is probably going to be one spot ahead of Disley. They're probably going to be like number 10 and number 11 at tight end. So really, in terms of their overall projection in a half PPR, they're almost next to one another. Almost identical number as a whole. But as of right now, I do prefer Knox in this circumstance. Now, as for your next question, also Ingram or Kraft, I'd rather play Evan Ingram full way. Thank you. Whether it's half PPR standard, full PPR. Thank you. Adam Amar sends in a question. Says, rest of season ranking Mooney, who is currently the wide receiver 8, or Jacoby Myers, DJ, or Marvin Harrison in a half PPR. Got it. Is Darnell Mooney the wide receiver 8 in a half PPR? Is that an actual thing? There's no way, right? I thought he was number 12. No, he's number 8. Holy moly. Now, that's primarily because he hasn't had a bye week this week. If you take into account just fantasy point per game averages, he's wide receiver 18 on the season. So again, I guess it just depends on what you want to value a player at, whether it's the fantasy point per game average or the fact that he's played more games than other options, right? So I wouldn't really give him the wide receiver 8 value of like, oh, that he's going to be top 12 rest of season. He hasn't been top 12 all season long, right? He's wide receiver 18 overall in a half PPR scoring format per game basis. So just think of him as that. He's a low-end wide receiver too. He's going to be in that rankings between 18 to 24 rest of the way. He'll have upside performances that can get him into the top 12, but he's not a top 12 player. So don't let that fool you, Adam. Now, as for your question as a whole, As it currently stands, the way that I would go about it would be Marvin Harrison first, Darnell Mooney second, and then between DJ Moore and Jacoby Myers, it is very difficult because I don't know what the quarterback status of Gardner Minshew is going to be rest of season with the Raiders. Because of the uncertainty there, I probably would lean towards DJ Moore third and Jacoby Meyer fourth, because again, if the Raiders at any point feel very much so, obliged to trying to get the number one overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft, they could at any moment pull Gardner Minshew, start Desmond Ridder for the remainder of the season, and just collect L's in order to get them one step closer to getting a franchise quarterback that they are in desperate need of. So at the moment, Marv, Mooney, DJ, Jacoby for rest of season rank. Now, as for this week, considering I know that Gardner Minshew is starting, Jacoby Myers is a top 20 wide receiver. He's clearing away a fantastic start and would be the best amongst all of the names you have mentioned here, Adam. Thank you. Ryan sends in a question. Ryan says, 2 questions, both PPR. I need 2 wide receivers in a flex out of Tillman, Mooney, Ladd, JSN, and Dell. Okay, so there's the first question. 2 wide receivers in a flex. Of the available that you have rostered here, the way that I would go about it is most likely, let me see, where do I have JSN in comparison to that? Okay, so JSN's there in a full PP. Okay, so as of right now, it's Tillman, JSN. I need to see if Dell is ahead of Mooney just real quick. Where's Dell? Dell's there. Mooney's there. So yeah, as it currently stands, the way that I have it ranked out is Tillman, JSN, Mooney, Ladd, Dell. That's the order at which I have it comprised. So the 3 that you would theoretically play, as of my suggestion, would be Tillman, JSN, Mooney in that order. As for your next question, Ryan, it says also start 2 wide receivers in 2 flex out of the following: Mooney, Tillman, Pearsall, Dobbins, Mostert, BTJ, JSN. Cool. So of those players, it would be almost identical. The only adjustment is that we're adding Dobbins into the mix. So Tillman, Mooney, JSN would be the top 3 as well in this circumstance, and then Dobbins would be your number 4. That's the way I go about it. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it. Christian Jackson, 3524, sends in a question. Thank you, Christian. Christian says in a full PPR, start 1, Chase Brown, Amari, Reed, Flowers, BTJ. Thanks. As of those available options, very, very confidently going to play Chase Brown there. His receiving upside from last week, what was it, 9 receptions? If Chase Brown's going to continue to look like the Austin Eckler of this season in that kind of capacity, to where he's going to get himself, I don't know, let's say 10 to 14 rushing attempts, he'll get himself his implied rushing touchdown on the goal line when the opportunity arises, but is going to predominantly find a majority of his value in a full PPR via receptions as a check down option. I'm all in on Chase Brown in that circumstance. Should be a shootout, the second highest scoring implicated game based on Vegas's overall totals between the Los Angeles Chargers tomorrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. There's a reason why I have Justin Herbert as the thumbnail. I expect that game to be a shootout and very exciting. The second best option that you have available to you, Christian Jackson, is probably Jaden Reed and or Flowers. But yeah, I do feel a lot of confidence in Chase Brown there. Thank you. All right, Natalie Berman sends in a question. Thank you, Natalie. Says Downs or Pearsall in a PPR. The struggle is real on that one. Okay, let's get to your second question. You said London or Swift as well in a half PPR. Okay. How do we want to do this? So let me check something really quickly. I'm curious, what does the Bears injury report look like as of right now? Okay, so Jenkins is out as expected. Braxton's going to be playing. Darnell Wright is going to be playing. Okay, so they just have 1 offensive lineman out in comparison to last week where they had 2 out. So as of right now, I'm probably still going to be confident enough. Okay, so between the half PPR question, I would probably play Drake London there. Now, as for Downs or Pearsall, that is the coin toss. If Pearsall is able to find himself the touchdown upside, fantastic. Otherwise, I do believe that Downs is going to outproduce him. I'm going to suggest playing Downs in this circumstance. I would assume, based on what we saw last time from Anthony Richardson, targeting Downs 9 times, he has learned or at least picked something up from Joe Flacco that, he understands we have to get Josh Downs heavily implicated within the overall matchup. So I'm going to lean towards Downs there ever so slightly, but Downs and London will be my 2 suggestions there, Natalie. Thank you. Dale D'Antoni sends in a question. Thank you, Dale. Says in a full PPR, can only start 2, Jacobs, Hunt, Puka. Okay, in a full PPR, Puka has to play. Even without getting himself a receiving touchdown the last 2 weeks, I mean, the guy is 18 to 20 points, right? Imagine once he scores a touchdown, the volume of potential he has in this circumstance. Now, as for Hunt versus Josh Jacobs in a full PPR scoring format, how do I have them ranked based on, let's see here, full PPR? I have Josh Jacobs slightly ahead of him. Yeah, that's probably the direction I go in. If Kareem Hunt is going to catch the ball 7 times again this week, I will, eat my words. But again, I think last week's performance of 10 targets is, based on what we've seen this season, that is a very rare instance. They couldn't run the ball last week, and because of that, they had to, divert to checking the ball down. So in this circumstance, I'll probably just lean towards playing Josh Jacobs and Puka Nacua here. Thank you. All right, Doppio sends it a question. Says in a full PPR, bench 1, Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins, D-Hop, plus buy low on Neighbors. Okay, so let's address the question and then we'll get to Neighbors. Okay, so in regards to who I am benching between those 3 options, I probably bench D-Hop there. I would rather play Tyreek Hill and T. Higgins this week. As for your next question, buy low on Neighbors. Okay, so here is the speculation as it currently stands. Based on the reports that we have heard that have been made public over the course of the last, week or so now? Not even. I would say it's probably the last couple days here. Based on those reports, we have seen a lot of potential in which once the Giants come back, Daniel Jones will not be the starter. Because, again, he currently has a massive contract. On top of that contract, he has an injury settlement, kind of like risk thing that if he in fact gets injured by the end of this season, next year, there's like $23 million that is guaranteed even if they cut him. So the concern is that if they play him and he gets injured and he is not the quarterback of their future, which he is certainly not as to what he has done thus far this season, they might want to bench him. In his absence, it would be Drew Lock playing quarterback. Is that an upgrade? Absolutely not. But is it going to be as solid of a potential option? Yes. So if you're okay with having a Drew Lock-led wide receiver, as you were with a Daniel Jones-led wide receiver, then yeah, you would try to buy low on him right now because the upcoming schedule is highly favorable for him. And we would assume that regardless of who plays quarterback, they're going to throw the ball into the best receiver's hands, which is Neighbors. So I have no issue trading for him as long as you understand the implied risk that revolves around Drew Lock. If it ends up being Tommy DeVito, we are in shambles. But let's just hope that it doesn't come to that. All right, Donahue Brown sends it a question. Thank you very much, Donahue. Says, do I accept this trade for Kenneth Walker? Okay, so do I accept trade for Kenneth Walker for Reed and Pickens? I would like to have the Reed and Pickens side of that deal for rest of season. If you have enough running back depth in order to be able to continue without Kenneth Walker, then I would take the trade. Now, if the actual question was the other way around, to where you are getting Kenneth Walker in exchange for you giving away Reed and Pickens, I'd like to know the rest of the context of your team, because I think at that point, giving away Reed and Pickens for just Kenneth Walker seems like a little bit too much in my opinion, especially considering the upcoming schedules of these players and the potential at which they can perform in a full PPR scoring format on a weekly basis for you. So if you want to provide more context there, you certainly can in the live chat, Donahue, and I'm more than happy to take a look at it. But in terms of answering your question, if you are trading for Reed and Pickens, I'd say 2 thumbs up, yes. Assuming, of course, you have enough running back depth for the upcoming future and you don't have any, you don't have any injury risk. You don't have any bye weeks that could hurt you in the upcoming weeks, because again, there's many of bye weeks to deal with upcoming here that many of us are going to hurt from. Thank you. Ocho sends in a question. Says, in a half PPR, we have Jalen Warren, we have Audric Estime, or Braylon Allen. Also, Downs or BTJ. Okay. So, between Downs and BTJ, I'm playing Josh Downs. I do not want to play BTJ with Mac Jones, even against the Detroit Lions of all defenses. Now, if BTJ ends up performing well, I will be surprised, mainly because I just don't trust Mac Jones outside of him supporting tight ends and running backs, because that's really all I've seen him do in his career. Ever so slightly, he has the potential of supporting a slot receiving option, which he has done back in his day with New England, but outside of that, very much so not an option to throw to the boundary. He's preferring over the middle of the field more than anything, or anything like if there's an out route, like a quick out, get the ball out of his hands quickly, he'd probably opt for that rather than anything deep down the field. So watch tomorrow morning, as soon as red zone starts at like 10:05. Oh my God, BTJ down the sideline, 70-yard touch. I swear it's going to happen. Mark my words, someone can clip this together with that, and it's going to be an absolute cinema experience. Anyway, getting back to your prior question, Ocho. Warren, Estime, and Braylon Allen. Between the 3 of them in a half PPR, as it currently stands, if I'm not mistaken, I still have Jalen Warren ranked the highest of the 3. Jalen Warren would be number 1, Estime would be number 2, and Braylon Allen would be number 3. I don't really like Braylon Allen as much this week, mainly because of the words that came out of the mouth of the offensive coordinator earlier this week. Specifically, they asked him about, do we feel like we're going to get more utilization out of Braylon Allen going forward, or do you guys want to continue to just feed the ball to Breece Hall? His response in specific, I don't know, word for word how it sounded, but I know the gist of it was Breece Hall should be the full-time back. If we feel ever so, I guess if they feel that it is a right time to throw in Braylon Allen, sure. Otherwise, it's just going to be the Breece Hall show going forward. All right, moving on to Terry R's question, who says full PPR pick 2. K9, Debo, Zay. As of right now, I would play K9 and Debo in this circumstance. Thank you very much. Now, in a full PPR, it does become very difficult because if Zay Flowers has one of those games, and we all know what I'm talking about or what I'm referring to in terms of one of those games. If he has one of those games where he has 8 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown, it's going to be rough there. But as of right now, I think it's very difficult not to start the alternative options that you have because of the fluctuations of performances, like 60% of the time he's on, 40% of the time he's off. If we get one of those off weeks here, it's going to be pretty rough. So I'd rather just play K9 and Debo at the moment. Thank you. Moving on to your next question, Terry R says, pick 1 defense, Kansas City, LA Rams, or Denver. Let me see where I have them ranked. I adjusted my defensive rankings last night. As it currently stands, of those following that you have mentioned, Kansas City is not on the top of the list, but I would like to keep them for the future weeks. If you can keep them for weeks 12 through 14, I would suggest doing so in your position, if you can keep them rostered. But as for this week, if you could play the LA Rams defense, I think that would be a great play in that circumstance. Thank you. If you can't, if you'd have to drop Kansas City in order to play the LA Rams, if this week's not like one of those must-win circumstances, I'd like to keep Kansas City for the future because it really does help you in the coming weeks here to at least have really solid matchups considering their upcoming schedule. William Campbell sends in a question. Thank you very much, William. Says, I'm currently 5-5 in a must-win situation. In a half PPR, I can't decide who to play. 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and 1 flex. We have Nick Chubb, we have Derrick Henry, we have Chase Brown, Tony Pollard, Tyreek Hill, Pickens, Ridley, Higgins, and Jennings. Okay. I can understand you've got a lot of great players here, but I think it's very clear as to how I'm going to structure this. Derrick Henry and Chase Brown are your best running backs. It's not even remotely close. Those are your best plays at running back. As for wide receiver, Pickens has been playing incredibly well with Russell Wilson, has the potential best matchup you could possibly ask for. Now, those are the 3 automatics. As to how we go with your second wide receiver and your flex, I mean, really, you can go many of ways about this. The way that I'm going to approach it as it currently stands is playing Tyreek Hill as your second wide receiver and most likely rolling with, where do I want to? Let's see here. I need to go and I need to pull up my rankings in terms of wide receivers in, what was the format again? This is a half PPR. Okay. So half PPR, in terms of the adjustments that I've made, where is Jennings? Oops. Okay. So Jennings and Calvin Ridley can go. All right. So as of right now, my current suggestion is going Henry, Brown, Pickens, Hill, Jennings. You could play Ridley over Jennings. They're going to be almost identically ranked right next to one another, but I do prefer Jennings in the current week. Thank you. I would probably give Higgins a week. I don't know if well, you know what? Now that I think about this, I haven't even thrown Higgins into the mix. Scratch it all. I play Higgins ahead of Ridley and Jennings. So it actually, it probably is actually Henry, Chase Brown, Hill, Pickens, Higgins, Jennings, Ridley, Pollard, Chubb, all benched. Thank you. It took a while to get there. You see, that this is what happens when I don't have my official rankings done. By tomorrow morning, I'll be at a 100% confident stance. But as of right now, I had to jump around there a little bit, William. My apologies, but now we got the right answer. Thank you. Meet Sweat sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, I need 1 in the flex. We have Ramondre Stevenson, Elijah Moore, and or Ricky Pearsall. Thanks. Okay. As of right now, between those potential 3 options, Elijah Moore seems like he could end up... Look, I think Elijah Moore's probably 4 or 5 receptions, 40, 50 receiving yards. So if you want like the safe baseline of 10 points, I think that's the path that you potentially explore. Outside of that, I'm probably going to play Ramondre Stevenson. Thank you. I think Ramondre has himself just as safe of a baseline, especially with the red zone utilization he gets within the offense. If he gets even more sprinkles of receiving utilization, he's even more of a solidified player with, again, the most upside amongst all of the options that you have available here. Davila Lobo sends in a question, or quote unquote Dustin sends in a question. Says, "Yo, bro, feeling confident, but want some assurance." Questions in the chat. All right, thank you very much, Dustin. Let me see what you got here. All right, let's see here. Okay. Dustin says, I have Allen, Gibbs, Walker, Amon-Ra, JSN, Knox, Stevenson, Vikings defense, and Fairbairn. I have Quentin Johnston, Charbonnet, and Goff available. Neighbors, McBride on bye. Kincaid and Pacheco are out. Okay. So, Allen, Gibbs, Walker. Yep. Amon-Ra, JSN, Knox, Stevenson. So you have Quentin Johnston, Charbonnet. Yeah. I mean, there's really there's no potential swapping anyway here. Like, the only alternative swap is like Quentin Johnston going in for Stevenson, which I don't prefer. I would rather keep Stevenson in that position. So yeah, I'd keep your roster as is. Obviously, you're in desperate need of somebody coming back next week by the name of McBride, Neighbors, Pacheco. And once you get them back, you'll be in a very solid position. So yeah, as of right now, not really moving anything. Keep it as is. You got it correctly structured. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Funny enough, there's another person in the chat named Dustin. You know, I would assume that Dustin's maybe, is it a common name? I don't know. Anyway, this question is half PPR, Downs or Quentin Johnston? Let me see where I have them structured. I have Quentin Johnston there. I have Josh Downs. Where the heck is Josh Downs? Down. No, not. Oh, God, what did I do? Remove. Where's Downs? As of right now, yeah, I'd rather play Quentin Johnston in a half PPR. If it was a full PPR, I think Josh Downs would be the preferred. But as of right now, Quentin Johnston alternatively is the preferred between the two. Thank you. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from Dragon Slayer, who says, in a PPR, start Chubb or Kenneth Walker? I'd much rather start Kenneth Walker. Chubb, okay, first of all, their left tackle is out. That doesn't help. On top of that, there's a situation in which we are dealing with Nick Chubb is still returning from his injury. Until we can see a full, healthy Nick Chubb, in which he is breaking out massive runs and being given a high workload of opportunity, I'm going to always filter away from him, especially with a running back like Kenneth Walker, who is more than capable of getting himself 3 to 5 receptions within a singular game, while Chubb is not going to be exposed to that opportunity as Jerome Ford is back and is going to serve primarily within that role. Last time out, most recently against the Los Angeles Chargers prior to their bye week, Jerome Ford played over 50% of the snaps and was the, clear and away, more active running back within the offense. Sure, he didn't get as many touches, but of course he fills in a lot of the overall role that Nick Chubb is not capable of filling at the moment. Now, until we get a clearer picture as to Chubb's overall upside of potential, Kenneth Walker has to start in this circumstance. Also, it says you have DK Metcalf or Zay Flowers. Between the two of them, I'd rather play DK Metcalf. I can understand and justify the idea of playing Flowers. They're both great overall options. I just believe in DK being the better option this week. Thank you. Gabriella sends in a question. Says, PPR pick 2 for the flex. Pop Douglas, Pearsall, or Knox. In a half PPR scoring format, I would play Pearsall and Knox. Thank you very much for the question, Gabriella. Moving on to a question from Stuart. Stuart says, greetings and salutations, Andrew. Lineup help: 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, 1 tight end. So basically a start 7. So if that is your situation in the future, reference for all of you, if you have 2-2-1-1-1, okay, that's a start 7. Just say start 7 and then follow it up. So you don't have to type it all out. Anyway, continuing on. PPR question. You have Herbert, you have Nix. Okay, between the two of them, I've kind of adjusted my quarterback rankings over the course of the last, I'd say, 8 hours here. So I currently still have Nix at number 6, but I have Justin Herbert as my number 8 quarterback. I'd still play Nix there. He has a little bit more rushing upside, and I prefer his matchup, quite frankly. So I would play Nix at quarterback. Next question. Achane, Breece, Chase Brown. Okay, those are incredible options at running back. The 2 that I would prefer to play would be Achane and Chase Brown in a full PPR. They get a lot of receiving utilization. That is where their value lies in terms of baseline, and then they always have the rushing upside potential. Then moving on to your wide receiver conversation, you have Kupp, T. Higgins, Juwan Jennings, McConkey, etc. As of those available, T. Higgins and Kupp would be my 2 starting wide receivers. Then if we pivot off into your flex conversation, there is where I'm going to start Breece Hall. In your tight end position, you have Hawkinson and Ingram, where I prefer to play Hawkinson, and that pretty much encompasses your entire starting roster. So from the top to the bottom, again, Stuart, Nix, Achane, Chase Brown, Kupp, T. Higgins, Breece Hall, Hawkinson. Thank you. Have a good one. Moving on to a question from Good Luck, who says, what's up, Andrew? Questions in the chat. All right, thank you very much. Let me see if I can find it. Good Luck. All right, Good Luck says, I need help picking 1 wide receiver, 1 running back, and 1 flex in a full PPR. Options are Travis Etienne, Chase Brown, Jalen Waddle, Darnell Mooney. Thanks, bro. Okay. So, obviously, you know to start Chase Brown, right? Hopefully. I mean, again, Chase Brown has been incredible the last 2 games. He's going to continue to play well. They're going into the upcoming bye week. I expect him to get 80 to 90+% of the overall workload of this offense, maybe even 100%. You never know. But as of right now, Chase Brown clearing away a stud play. He's a top 10 running back. In a full PPR, he's a top 6 running back going into this week. That's how confident I am with Chase Brown. So besides that, that is the automatic. Now, as for your wide receiver and your flex between Waddle, Mooney, and ETN, very sketchy situation. Of the available options, I would prefer in a full PPR to play Mooney and Waddle. I don't really want to trust Travis Etienne in this situation because I prefer your alternative options. Even with Tank Bigsby out, again, this is not going to be a game in which Travis Etienne is going to be actively running the ball for majority of that second half because they're going to be down 14 to 20 points at some point in this game. If he gets himself the exposure to opportunity within the receiving game, that is great, but it doesn't mean that the yardage is going to accompany it to be relevant enough. So between the alternative options, yeah, I'd prefer to play Darnell Mooney and Waddle there, along with Chase Brown. Thank you. All right, moving on to a question. Follow-up from Dale Dan Tony. He just says, thank you, you're the best. All right, appreciate it, Dale. Appreciate that. Sean sends in a question. Says, start 2.5 PPR. We have Bateman, Addison, and Elijah Moore. Okay, so this is a very good question. As of those available options, I would prefer to play Bateman for sure, without a doubt. Especially considering, again, I don't expect Deontay Johnson, even though this is a revenge game for Deontay Johnson going up against his former team, I don't expect Deontay Johnson to get himself much of an overall workload, considering he is still learning the offense. If he plays 50% of the offensive snaps, I would be surprised. 60% would be out of the realm of possibility in my mind, but hey, maybe he's a quick learner. But either way, Bateman is the preferred for sure. He's played incredibly well as of late. Between Addison and Moore, do I want to play Addison against the Titans? I'd like to assume that no. As of right now, I'd probably go Bateman and Elijah Moore at the moment. Addison certainly has more touchdown upside. I just don't know if he's going to be able to actualize it. Even, Sam Darnold's not been playing incredibly well as of late, even against that matchup. I don't really trust it as a whole. So yeah, if it's me, I'm probably going to play Bateman and Elijah Moore there. Thank you. Josie sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, pick 2 between Tillman, Higgins, Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams and Tillman are my 2 suggestions as of this week. Thank you. Alrighty, moving on to a question that comes in from, let's go back to here so I can find it. After Josie, we had Terry R. says questions in the chat. All right, Terry, thank you very much. Let me see where I can find your question. Terry R. All right, Terry R. says, in a full PPR, trade away Kupp and Najee Harris to acquire Breece Hall and Jaden Reed. Sure, yeah, I'm down. In a full PPR scoring format, I will take Breece Hall and Jaden Reed out of that deal for rest of season. I have no issue with that at all. And then for your rest of your context, your team consists of Tua, Bijan, JT, St. Brown. Yeah, I'm cool with this trade. I have no problem with it at any circumstance. The only question that I have for you is, well, I don't even have to ask you the question. Let me just look at your team. So here's the only issue that I could potentially see forthcoming. If I go to NFL Week 12, looking at the bye week here, so Week 12 consists of the Falcons, Bills, Bengals, Jaguars, Saints. So you'd have James Cook on bye there, but then the Week 14, you'd have Indianapolis and where's the Jets? Okay, so you'd still be fine, right? Let me see. What else do you have on roster there? So you have Bijan. Okay, so here's your issue, Terry. So yeah, so here's the issue that you currently have. Next week, you have the Falcons and the Jets on a bye. Okay, so you will not. Are the Colts also on a bye? No, the Colts are on week 14. So next week you'd have Bijan and Breece Hall out of commission. Then you'd have to start James Cook. Wait, is James Cook playing next week? He is not. Okay, so herein lies the problem, Terry. Terry, if your team has a current record 10-0, 9-1, 8-2, 7-3, if you have any of those records, you make this deal because you are going to make the playoffs. Regardless of what you do, you will make the playoffs. But in the instance in which you are a 6-4, a little bit shaky, maybe only, let's say, for example, 4 teams out of 10 make the playoffs, or maybe only 6 teams out of 12 make the playoffs in those kind of shaky circumstances. If you're 6-4, 5-5, 4-6, 3-7, okay, you cannot make this deal because objectively, as it currently stands, unfortunately, you'd be trading for a running back that has a bye week. And the current running backs on your roster, Bijan and JT and James Cook, all have upcoming bye weeks. Specifically, James Cook and Bijan out next week. So JT would be your only starting running back next week. And, well, actually, you'd have Rachaad White. Okay, you're fine. Make the trade. All right, I'm done. I thought about it for a while. I didn't read the entire. Yeah, that's my bad. Okay, we spent too much time there. Terry, make the trade. You're good to go. You have enough running back depth, brother. You're good. All right, Jay sends in a question. It says, Bo Nix or Purdy in a 6-point per passing touchdown league? I'd rather play Brock Purdy there. Brock Purdy has slowly but surely moved up my rankings enough to where he may be ahead of Josh Allen by tomorrow morning. But as of right now, well, actually, if it was a 6-point per passing touchdown league, I'd probably play him over Josh Allen. But in a 4-point, Purdy is the preferred. Either way, I mean, Josh Allen would be the preferred. Anyway, regardless, I'm playing Purdy over Bo Nix. As for your next question, Lions defense or Broncos defense, I'd rather play the Lions this week. Thank you. All right, moving on to a question from Mark H., who says, full PPR start 2 between Tony Pollard, JSN, Jacoby Myers. I would play Jacoby Myers and JSN very confidently there, considering the return of Tyjae Spears and the lack of overall workload utilization out of Tony Pollard. In a full PPR, the wide receivers are the preferred of the group. Thank you. All right, we move on to a question. I believe Travis is next on the list. Let me just confirm this, make sure I didn't skip anybody. Cool. Travis, thank you very much. It says 3 wide receivers, 2 flex league. Was offered London/Achane for Tyreek Hill, JT Pickens. Oof, that is a heavy haul. I think JT Pickens for London Achane is an even trade. I think Tyreek Hill just makes it overkill. I would prefer to have the Tyreek Hill side rest of season, in my opinion. Now, the only reason you wouldn't take that trade is if you have like bye week complications of some sort. But as of right now, I'd rather have Tyreek Hill, JT Pickens rest of season. That is the side that I would objectively prefer to have, especially in a 3 wide receiver, 2 flex league. I'd rather have more depth in this circumstance. Thank you. Hopper sends in a question. Says, is Lamb toast for the rest of season? Is he toast rest of season? Okay, so, okay. I would say that as of right now, in the absence of Dak Prescott, he is a significantly lesser player. There's a reason why all of last week and all of this week thus far, we have said trade away CeeDee Lamb. Get rid of him. We do not want him. Because Dak Prescott's not coming back. And because of his absence, again, at any moment, once the Dallas Cowboys have a 3-10 win-loss record, who's to say that Lamb's like, all right, I'm gonna call it here. I'm injured, and take the rest of the season off. Like, who's to say that doesn't happen, right? So at the moment, is he toast? I wouldn't say he's completely toast. He's definitely in the air fryer right now. He's getting there. There's about 8 minutes left on the clock, but as of right now, I'm trying to trade him. If you have him on roster and you can't trade him, you just have to hope for the best. Keep your fingers crossed. Akshay sends in the question, says Tillman or Higgins this week, PPR if Lamb is out. Okay, so okay. So what report just came out that everyone's asking me about Lamb that I am not privy to at the moment? Because you're asking if he's toast, and then somebody's asking me if he's out. All right, here we go. 28 minutes ago. All right, so literally as the stream starts, Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network says CeeDee Lamb was added to the injury report today as was limited with a back injury. He is officially questionable. Here it is. Guys, here it comes. Are we toast? The oil is bubbling. We might be deep fried soon here. That is not good. That I don't like to see. But again, not surprised. Anyway, to answer your question, Akshay, I would prefer to play Tillman in that circumstance. If Lamb is out, even if Lamb is in, I'm not playing Lamb over Tillman or Higgins. He is not ranked higher than either of those two as of Wednesday, nor is he currently. So I'd rather play Tillman and Higgins over him. Now, as of those two, Tillman, Higgins, I prefer to play Tillman as of right now. Thank you. Lou sends in a question. Says PPR start 1, Pearsall, Shakir, Moore. In a full PPR, Shakir is the preferred by a metric fuck ton. It is not even close. Shakir is a machine. He has had himself 6 receptions each of the last 4 games. In the absence of Kincaid, he will dominate over the middle of the field. In the absence of Keon Coleman, that means even more receiving upside. With Cooper still trying to learn the offense, by far and away, the preferred option of this offense is Khalil Shakir. I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes with 10 receptions on Sunday. Thank you. Michael Ortiz sends in a question. Michael, thank you very much. Michael says, half PPR, Burrow or Purdy? I'd rather play Purdy this week. I understand that the heat check that Burrow is on is very much so enticing to throw him out there, but Purdy against the Seahawks is just too automatic of a matchup in my mind. But I could justify the idea of playing Burrow. They're going to be back-to-back ranked tomorrow morning. It's going to go, at least of the remaining quarterbacks that are left standing, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Brock Purdy, Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud. Those are going to be like the top tier guys, right? So in that order. As for your next question here, Michael, you said Hawkinson or Ingram in a full PPR. I'd prefer to play Hawkinson in that circumstance. And then you said full PPR, start Ferguson or pick up Taysom Hill or Knox or another quarterback or another tight end, excuse me. So of those available, let's say, for example, tomorrow, in the event in which CeeDee Lamb is out, I'd rather play Ferguson over Knox because I really feel like there would be no other potential receiving options within that offense that we can trust. But in the event in which CeeDee Lamb is active, which he should be, we would play Knox in this situation in a full PPR. And in your final question, Dell or Cooper, I'd like to play Amari Cooper tomorrow. Thank you. Going back up here, we had a question from Emily Doyle. Emily, thank you very much. Says, I feel like playing Herbert over Goff. Yes, I would too as well. As of right now, last night I was messing around with the rankings, just adjusting them accordingly, kind of taking into a couple different metrics into consideration. My projection model currently has Justin Herbert as the number 8 overall quarterback and Jared Goff as my number 11. Adjusted that pretty considerably in comparison to where it was on Thursday. But with all the information taken into account, yes, I would play Herbert over Goff this week based on what we've seen out of Goff and the expectation that that game becomes a one-sided affair very quickly. And of course, the commitment to the running game from that offense. And of course, a lot of the touchdowns going in the direction of Montgomery and Gibbs effectively. So yeah, I would play Herbert there. As for your next question, also thoughts on playing Shakir over Sutton in a half PPR. In a half PPR, I wouldn't be as, I wouldn't mind it, but do I prefer it? Absolutely not. Sutton has been playing out of his absolute mind as of late. Again, we talked about it on Wednesday. He's averaging 10 targets per game, 7 receptions per game, 94 receiving yards per game, 1 receiving touchdown per game, over 16 fantasy points in a half PPR over the course of the last 3 games. He has been unstoppable, and he takes on a matchup against Atlanta that has struggled against wide receivers and quarterbacks. So we'd assume that, of course, Bo Nix is going to look in the direction of his security blanket, his number 1 guy, which is Sutton. So that's the direction I'm going to lean in as of right now because of the half PPR format. In a full PPR, I could understand playing Shakir, but not in a half. Thank you, Emily. Appreciate it. Dale D'Antoni sends in a follow-up. Says CeeDee's back injury just now. Replace with Puka from the flex and put Hunt on the bench to flex. Okay, yeah. By the way, listen, guys. If you were already considering starting CeeDee Lamb this week, why? You understand, again, even though it's a good matchup against Houston, even if he plays, I had him, ranked number 21 at wide receiver earlier this week. I have no confidence in Cooper Rush / Trey Lance. I have no confidence that the coaching staff is not going to pull one quarterback and go to the other. So, again, CeeDee Lamb is not a great play. Hello? Okay. I'm sorry about that. I was like, what's going on here? So I don't even have any trust in CeeDee Lamb as a individual prospect. So the idea of playing Puka and Hunt ahead of him, absolutely, without a doubt in my mind, that is the for sure approach as of this week, Dale. As for your next overall question, also have D-Hop and A.J. Brown. Might have to bench CD from now on. Yeah, you do. Those alternative options you have are better. But in the upcoming future, once Hunt disappears in the return of Pacheco, therein lies the kind of consideration of Lamb for that flex position. Thank you. Auntie Slayer sends in a question. Says, trade away London for Gibbs. I think I'm going to require some context as to what the roster looks like. Let me see if you typed anything in the chat, Slayer. Slayer, nothing. Okay, there's Dragon Slayer and there's Auntie Slayer. Okay, so yeah, as of right now, without any sort of context as to what the rest of that roster looks like, if you're in need of running back, okay, and you're trying to avoid a Drake London upcoming bye week next week, then yes, we take that deal. Abso-freaking-lutely. Not even close. We're taking it. But that is under the consideration of those two circumstances. You need running back. You're solid at wide receiver. You're trying to avoid the bye week. If those are all checked off, boom, 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 we take the trade. Thank you. All right, moving on to a question that comes in from some guy named, and then it says M, and it gets cut off. I don't know what the I don't know what the name is, but some guy named. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Some guy named. Let me see. Can I find the full name? What's the full name? Some guy named M. No, that is the full name. Okay, very well. All right, continuing on. I went to your channel. You have a bunch of playlists with Always Sunny in Philadelphia clips. I love that show. Okay, anyway. PPR, choose one. BTJ, Hopkins, Downs, Mooney. Out of those available options, it's either Hopkins or Mooney. In a PPR format sense, I'm going to probably play Hopkins there, number 1. Mooney, number 2. Downs, 3. BTJ, 4. Thank you. Chris Moraga sends in a question. It says, in a PPR, pick 1, wide receiver and flex. Flowers, Ladd, Meyer, Stevenson. Out of those available options, I am incredibly confident in playing Flowers and Myers there between the four. Thank you, Chris. Jose Cruz sends in a question. Says, contemplating between Njoku and Knox. Thoughts? I'm all in on Njoku this week. Earlier in the week, again, understand that what we've seen out of Njoku hasn't been a great volume of overall opportunity share. But when you take into account the volume of times this offense throws the ball, of course, his numbers aren't going to be, in terms of percentages, as great as potentially other options. So when Njoku is getting only 17, 18% of the overall target share, right? It's because they're throwing the ball 45 times, right? So if they were going to throw the ball 30 times, his target share would be at a higher percentage, or at least a higher clip. But at this moment, considering how much they air it out, yeah, I prefer to play Njoku in this week, very confidently, in fact. Thank you. Meat Sweats sends in a follow-up. Says, rest of season, do I hold Ricky Pearsall or do I grab Christian Watson or Romeo Doubs off of the waivers in a full PPR? I would rather have Romeo Doubs rest of season. Again, from what we have seen out of Romeo Doubs as of late, when we have seen Romeo Doubs with a healthy Jordan Love as of late, he has been solid. Now, again, let's see here. The most recent performance was a rain game. We didn't expect much out of him or Jaden Reed, even though Jaden Reed was great, had over 100 receiving yards. Again, the rain against the Detroit Lions in Green Bay was not favorable. Very difficult overall circumstance. The Jacksonville Jaguars game, prior to him leaving to the game, we already, in the first half of the contest, prior to Jordan Love leaving the game, we already had seen Romeo Doubs with 72 yards. He was going for over 100, if not a touchdown. But then the prior game to that, 8 catches, 94 on 10 targets. The prior game to that, 3 catches, 49, 2 touchdowns. Since coming back from his meltdown in which he, left the team and didn't want to play with them going against, which week was it? I don't even remember which game he missed out. I think it was like the Jets game. Was it the Jets? Did they play the Jets this year? I don't know which game it was. Anyway, no, they didn't play the Jets. There's no way that Aaron Rodgers played the Jets. Played the Green Bay Packers, and I don't remember it. Anyway, there's a game throughout the season. I don't know which one it was. I'm going to find it right now because my brain is starting to malfunction. Let's go to Green Bay's schedule. He missed the game earlier this season against Week 5. All right, let's see here. Packers schedule. Who did he miss against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Against the Rams. That's what it was. So since missing the game against the Rams, since coming back, he's been unstoppable with Jordan Love. I'd like to have him on roster in comparison to Ricky Pearsall. Thank you. Daniel Lundquist sends in a question. Let me see here, Daniel. It's probably in the live chat. Control F. Daniel Lundquist says, full PPR, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and 1 flex. We have Jennings is on the waivers. Okay, so we might want to pick him up. Is there any players I should drop for him? My current roster consists of Gibbs, Hunt, Lamb, Reed, Achane. My bench is Dobbins, London, McBride, Otten, and Tracy. Whew. Okay, so as it currently stands, looking at your roster as a whole, Gibbs, Achane, Gibbs, Achane, Dobbins, Tracy, none of them can be dropped. You have to keep all of them. You have to. As for the upcoming wide receivers, you have Lamb, you have Reed, you have London, and then you have McBride and Otten, who are both on bye, but you have to keep... Okay. So, no, I wouldn't make any swaps. At the moment, you probably cannot. In the future, let's say, for example, Daniel, you get into a situation where this time next week, if we have the same conversation, I would tell you to drop Hunt for him because I would assume that Pacheco is going to be returning. But the reason why I want to keep Hunt this week is because you have to start him in the absence of Tracy. That's going to be your flex this week because when I look at your roster, you have Gibbs at RB, you have Achane at RB, you have Reed at wide receiver, you have London at wide receiver, and then you're flexing Hunt. So yeah, you have to keep the roster as is. I'm not making any swaps. I could justify the idea of dropping Otten, but he's just too good. I wouldn't start Jennings over Reed or London in the upcoming future, but in the event in which Lamb's out for injury, London goes on bye next week, I could justify picking up Jennings and playing him for next week and dropping Otten. But that's if that's the only, option that you have. That would be the only preemptive swap that I'd make. As of this week, otherwise next week, I'm dropping Hunt for him most likely. Thank you, Daniel. All right, moving on to a question from Savage Era. Thank you, Savage. Says, sup, Andrew. All right, let's see here. W1, McLaurin disappointment. Yeah, to say the very least. Need 2 wide receivers. Okay, so need W2, 2 running backs, and a flex. Debo, DK Metcalf, McConkey, Ridley, Stevenson, Brian Robinson, Montgomery. Or sorry, that's Bijan Robinson. Apologies. Okay. The 2 running backs that I'm starting out of the names that you mentioned, by far and away, easily, Bijan Robinson and David Montgomery. That's your 1-2 RB. As for your singular flex that you play out of all those options, it's going to be Debo Samuel. If you had a 4th option that you could theoretically play there, it would be DK Metcalf. So again, Bijan and Montgomery are your running backs. Debo is your number 1 flex. Number 2 flex, if you have it, would be Metcalf. And then your final question, I'm going to ask you again tomorrow. LOL. Okay, San Francisco or Detroit defense. I'd rather play Detroit's defense this week. Thank you. But yeah, I'm pretty confident I'm not going to change my suggestion in this circumstance, even by tomorrow. But hey, if you want to ask again, go for it. Thank you. All right, we had a question that came in from Octavio, who says, any players I should target in a 10-team full PPR 5-5 record. I have Allen, Neighbors, Marvin Harrison, Hall, Gibbs, Njoku, Flowers, benches Waddle, Downs, D-Hop, Bucky, Dowdle. Also, who do I start this week? Okay, so in regards to your starters, you're starting Josh Allen, you're starting Gibbs, you're starting Hall, you're starting Njoku, Flowers is your wide receiver 1, D-Hop is your wide receiver 2. And then your flex this week is most likely in a full PPR Downs. So again, Josh Allen, starting 2 RBs are Gibbs and Hall, starting 2 wide receivers are Flowers and D-Hop. You're playing Downs in the flex. You're playing Njoku at tight end. That's how you start it. Now, as for who are we potentially going after? I mean, look, Octavio, considering you're 5-5, I don't know what your chances are of making the playoffs. Maybe 8 of your 10 teams make the playoffs, so you're in a safe position. But if it's 6 of 10, and you're going to potentially catch an L here, it could be tough. But in the upcoming future, if we're looking to potentially target a specific player, I would like to try to get James Conner on roster. Considering you're already missing Marvin Harrison, Neighbors, Bucky off of this team already, if you could potentially prepare, I mean, you're probably going to lose this week anyway, but if you don't and you end up catching a victory, congratulations, that's fantastic. But I'm trying to go get James Conner. That's what I'm trying to do in your position. If that is not a possibility because the team doesn't want to part ways with him, you don't make any changes. You're solid going forward. Thank you. Smooth Criminal sends in a question. Says trade, or also you could try to trade for Mike Evans. That's another option. Thank you. Smooth Criminal says trade Brees for Aaron Jones and Tracy, full PPR. Yeah, I would make that trade. In terms of rest of season depth, especially considering Brees Hall has an upcoming bye week here, Aaron Jones and Tracy will already be past theirs. They're going to provide you depth, and they're going to provide you, feasibly pretty solid options as RB2s going forward here. So yes, I would make that swap. Hank Hennig sends in a question. Thank you, Hank. Says, would you roll with Kansas City's defense for average points? I have a good all-around team. Would you drop Deontay/Mostert for Cleveland, Indianapolis, New Orleans, but not confident about that? Yeah, I'm not. Okay, so as of right now, I would consider playing Cleveland's defense this week over Kansas City. And I would be willing to drop Mostert in order to accomplish it. But in the event in which you have, for example, Devon Achane, I wouldn't make that swap because I'd be worried about the potential handcuff nature of it. But am I willing to just start them outright as an average defense? You have to keep Kansas City. That we know for sure. So me personally, I don't mind the idea of dropping Deontay or Mostert. I don't think they provide value to your team in the upcoming future. So giving yourself a chance to get an extra bit of points this week with Cleveland's defense, I think is the preferred way which I am approaching it. So that's what I would do. I'd pick up Cleveland's defense, I'd drop Mostert, and I'd play them. Now, as for your next question, PPR, Mooney or Downs in the flex? I would prefer to play Mooney there. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Sean K sends in a question. Says, rank these quarterbacks rest of season, Daniels, Love, Purdy. Okay, so considering Jaden Daniels' injury and his upcoming bye week, he is the least favorable option of the group for rest of season. The way that I would rank it would be Purdy 1, Love 2, Daniels 3, rest of season. Thank you. Auntie Slayer sends in a question. Says, I have Kupp, Jennings, Marvin Harrison, Leggett, and Chase Brown. Hunt, Estimate, Dowdle, Tracy. Trade London for Gibbs. Okay, so this is the context to your question. Understood. So, you have Chase Brown, you have Hunt, you have... Yeah, you have to make the trade. You have to. Absolutely. You need the running back depth, absolutely. And you have enough wide receivers to be able to compensate for this, in my opinion, in the upcoming future with Kupp and Jennings both past their bye weeks. So yes, I would make the swap personally. As for what else you have, it says, or should I just hold on to top 3 in the... Yeah, look, you can hold. That is for sure. That's always an option. You can keep what you have, but as of right now, considering Hunt is going to disappear and you will most likely have to either start Estime or Dowdle every single week, I'd prefer to just have Gibbs on roster at that point. Very confidently just roll with him in the future. So that's, yeah, I'd be willing to make the trade. You don't have to, though, because Dowdle could still be of value, but I think you have more wide receiver stability than you do at running back at the moment. Savage Era says full PPR, my bad. All right, Savage, let me see here. Yeah, I mean, even in a full PPR, Bijan, Montgomery are your two starters. Debo is going to be your flex, and then DK is your second flex. Thank you. All right, so let's see here. Moving on to the next question that comes in. It was from Justin B. Thank you very much, Justin. It says Purdy, Bijan, Gibbs, AJ Brown played. Understood. Mooney, Knox, Chase Brown. Do I start Jennings or J.K. Dobbins as my last flex in a full? Is it a full PPR? Yeah, it's a full PPR. I would prefer to play Jawan Jennings there, in my opinion, especially considering they take on the Seahawks secondary. Yeah, that is the preferred of the two. And then it says I'm going up against Nico. Yeah, I don't really care who you're playing against. I'm just trying to set your best potential lineup. I would rather play Jawan Jennings this week. Thank you. Damon Smith sends in a question. Thank you, Damon. All right, so full PPR. Would you trade Nick Chubb and Ferguson for Jaden Daniels, or Nick Chubb for Bo Nix straight up, or stream Aaron Rodgers and Drake May for the playoff run? Okay. I think it depends on what you have in terms of depth. I don't know if I'm feeling... Okay, let's see here. Washington Commanders schedule. So when I look at their upcoming schedule here, okay, I have no issue against Dallas, Tennessee. Then they have to hit a bye week. And then they play against New Orleans, which I don't have an issue with. But then we get into the Philadelphia situation again and in Atlanta. So week 16 and week 14 are issues. So 2 of those 4 weeks, I would probably be looking for an alternative option, objectively. So trading for a quarterback in which I'm going to already have issues with is a problem. Now, if Nick Chubb is, let's say, for example, trade fodder, he's your 4th or 5th running back on roster, sure, I'd make that trade. I'd move him and Ferguson, and I'd go for Jaden Daniels. But then I'm still picking up a player in week 14 and 15 to play. Now, let's say, for example, let me see what Bo Nix's schedule looks like. Broncos schedule. They have, I think they just have they have a far more favorable schedule. I think if I'm in your position, I mean, oof, am I going to say this? Oof. But they have a week 14 bye as well. As of right now, for the upcoming future, with Atlanta, Las Vegas, Cleveland, and then having Indy in week 15, Los Angeles Chargers week 16, and Cincy week 17, I'd probably rather have Bo Nix the rest of the way. He's been consistent. I don't have to worry about his health with the rib injury that Jaden Daniels is dealing with. You can get him for a 1-for-1, and then you can also go and pick up a week 14 play, which if I look at week 14 NFL, if it's either Drake May or Aaron Rodgers who's going to be your backup there, I like the idea of potentially rolling with, well, Drake May has a week 14 bye, so you'd have to play Aaron Rodgers against the Dolphins in week 14, which honestly I don't have an issue with. So that would be the two. I'd probably go for Nix. I don't mind the idea for going for Daniels, but again, 2 of those couple weeks here are a little bit sketchy in comparison to Nix is like an auto start every week in those circumstances. So I'd go after Nix. I'd pair him with Aaron Rodgers, and that's how I'd approach it. Peyton Whitaker says, hey, Pookie. How disappointed are you in the fight? I'm not disappointed. I made a bet last night and it actually hit. So, on Underdog, let's see here. What do we have here? Underdog. Let's pull it up, shall we? If I go to my live pick'ems, so let's change the screen real quick. So yesterday, when you asked me, how do you think the fight's going to go? I told you it's going to be more WWE than anything, right? So I went after I got off the live stream and I put the fight going higher than 13 rounds because I knew, like, there's no way one of these two guys is knocking out the other, right? It's a fabricated event of sorts. So this one, beautiful. Love it. It went well. Again, for those of you who haven't seen my suggested plays for this weekend, I think this can encompass it really quickly. We'll go ahead and put other ones together, but these are the ones that I suggested in regards to the episode of the Hidden Gems this week. Jefferson, okay, you know what? Well, while we're at this, let me go ahead and reiterate why I'm so confident in these overall positions for those of you who are potentially attempting to follow these. Just so I have the script ahead of me and in front of me, I'm going to go ahead and let's reiterate these really quickly. So, as of right now, in terms of Jefferson, okay, in this play, he has gone higher in 7 of the last 7 games than that reception count. And then if we talk about so this reception count. And if we talk about Bowers, I don't even know if 3.5 is still available, but he's gone higher than this 5 out of the last 5 games. Achane, 5 out of the last 5 with Tua. Shakir, 4 out of the last 5 and 6 out of the last 7 in healthy games. So this one, pretty comfortable. Then we move on to this one. Bijan, 9 out of the last 10 games higher. Kenneth Walker, 5 of the last 6. Kamara, 7 of the last 7. HN, 5 out of the last 5. Boom. Then we move on to this. Nico Collins, 9 of the last 9. Jefferson, 7 of the last 8. And Pickens, 3 of the last 3. And he has a great matchup against Thing this week. So, again, these are my favorite plays. I went ahead and put together this one last night because we were talking about it. So this hit already. I'm going higher on, obviously, Achan's receptions. He has had 5 or more receptions for 5 consecutive games with Tua under center. And then Jefferson's done this every single game for the last, 7 weeks, I said? No, 7 of the last 8 games. There you go. No. Sorry. Scratch that. 7 of the last 7 games. Okay, cool. Done. We'll get back to putting together some entries in regards to Underdog in a moment, but just wanted to go ahead and address that. I'm not disappointed with the fight. It actually went the way that I thought it would. Young Money sends in a question, says PPR rank flex, Mooney, Reed, Higgins, Downs, Jacobs. Okay. If I'm going to rank them for the flex for this weekend, the way that I would go about this in a full PPR scoring format would be well, you know what? Let me see where I have Jacobs in comparison to Reed in a full PPR. Let me just confirm this. Reed is there. And Josh Jacobs, where are they? Control F Jacobs. Okay. So in a full PPR, the way that I would rank the following here. Young Money. Jacobs 1, Reed 2, Higgins 3, Mooney 4, Downs 5. That is the order. Jacobs 1, Reed 2, Higgins 3, Mooney 4, and Downs 5. Thank you. Q Verks sends in a question. Says half PPR. Rank Garrett Wilson, Puka Nacua, Tillman, Zay, and Higgins. Got it. Okay. Number 1, Puka Nacua and a half PPR. Number 2 would be Garrett Wilson. Number 3, Tillman. Number 4, Zay Flowers. Number 5, Higgins. Thank you. Moving on to a question that came in from Eric. He says, questions in the chat. All right, Eric, thank you very much. Eric, I see the question. It says, in a full PPR at quarterback, start Geno, Drake May, or Anthony Richardson. As of those 3, the order at which I currently have it is Geno 1, Drake May 2, Anthony Richardson 3. Geno is in my top 10 rankings at quarterback going into this week. I've moved them up considerably. Moving on to start 1 at tight end and 1 in the flex between Knox, Taysom Hill, Muth, Booty, and Estime. Of those available options, I would play Knox and Taysom Hill. Thank you. All right, moving on to a question that comes in from Criminal Minds 06. Plays playoff push. Need upside. Half PPR, pick 2 wide receivers and 2 flex. My options are DJ Moore, Xavier Worthy, Jalen Warren, Mike Williams, Deontay Johnson, Cam Akers, Jonnu Smith, Michael Pittman, and Knox. Okay. Pretty mid options here. I'm going to be honest. Okay, Criminal Minds, we are in a tough situation to say the least. But I think the suggestion I'm going to make, I'm very confident in because I think these are the only players you can really trust starting. So as of right now, at wide receiver, I am going to play Michael Pittman Jr. and DJ Moore. Boom. Set. Done. Then I'm going to play flex Dawson Knox and Jonnu Smith. That's the way that I go about this. I have no trust that Mike Williams will play enough, nor do I have trust that Deontay Johnson will play enough. Warren is very much so dependent on a touchdown to outscore the rest, which again, he is not going to be exposed to. Worthy is a deep ball away, but again, the secondary for the Bills plays incredibly well. Cam Akers only will be able to function in garbage time, which again, there will be, but not enough. So at the moment, I'm leaning towards DJ Moore, Pittman, Jonnu, and Knox. Thank you. Some guy named M sent in a follow-up, right? Where did it go? Yes. Says PPR drop 1. Gibbs, Chase Brown, Jacobs, Monty, Kyron. Drop 1? Okay. So, if we're dropping 1 for rest of season, it's probably David Montgomery. It probably is. Of the bunch, he has the least upside in a PPR because he doesn't get the receiving upside and exposure. So in comparison to the rest, I would say that yes, in terms of rest of season, if I'm dropping one of those 5 stud running backs, Montgomery's the drop. You keep Chase Brown, Jacobs, Kyron, and Gibbs. Peyton Whitaker says, happy birthday. Thank you very much, Peyton. Let's see where your question went. Peyton, where art thou question? Peyton Whitaker. Oh, that was it? All right, nothing else? Thank you, Peyton. I appreciate it. All the fights before that were goated, though. I didn't even watch any of the fights before that. Listen, so okay, so let me give you a little bit of insight. Okay, I'm not really a boxing or a MMA or anything fan. Like I'll keep an eye on stuff just to keep an eye on it. But instead of watching the boxing fights on Netflix last night, instead I was watching Midnight Sumo. Okay, so As of this current moment in time, there's currently a sumo wrestling tournament in Japan. Okay, this happens every 3 months. Yesterday was day 5. That's what I watch. Okay, I watch sumo wrestling. I don't watch boxing. I have no interest in boxing. Sumo wrestling's where it's at. Okay, quick, easy. It's like offensive linemen. They fucking toss each other out, and it's just quick 4 seconds, and we're done. We're keeping it moving. It's like, I don't know. It's some pretty entertaining stuff, I will say. I watched it on Twitch. There's a specific channel on Twitch that has it streaming every night. Very entertaining. That's what I was indulging in terms of instead of watching those boxing fights. Thank you. Moving on. Brian Weiss sends in a question. Says, I'm currently 5-5, and I took a chance and probably an L. Okay. How do you feel about this? I traded Metcalf and Brian Robinson for Tracy and Connor. Okay, I don't have an issue with that. I have Kupp, London, Lamb with Tillman on the bench. Yeah, I don't have an issue with this. Why would I have an issue with this? I prefer to have Connor over Brian Robinson. Metcalf, losing him in exchange for a running back is not an issue as long as you're going to use Tracy rest of season. With Brian Robinson having an upcoming bye week and the wide receiver depth you currently have with Kupp and Tillman, those two guys are past their bye weeks. Once London goes on bye next week, is fine, but then once he comes back, he's going to be perfectly fine. I don't have an issue with this trade at all in any circumstance. You're getting 2 running backs that you can blindly start rest of season because of not only matchups, but because of their talent itself. So I have no issue with this, Brian. Orlando says, trade CeeDee Lamb for Connor immediately. If you can get James Conner for CeeDee Lamb, you are scamming them. Hurry, make the deal before they come to their senses. Thank you. Sean K says, thinking playoffs, still Purdy, Love, Daniels. Let me see the upcoming fan. I mean, you probably saw my video on Thursday in regards to the rest of season strength of schedule at quarterback in regards to those 3. If you're thinking playoffs and not the regular season, so weeks 11 through 14 are not really in your mind throughout that kind of spectrum. If we're just looking at playoffs as a whole, as it currently stands, San Francisco has LA Rams, Miami, Detroit. That looks like 3 shootouts to me, if you asked me. So I'd still like that. And then Green Bay has Seattle, New Orleans, Minnesota. Yeah. So as of right now, objectively, Jordan Love has the better fantasy playoff schedule. Would I put him ahead of Purdy in that circumstance? Arguably, I probably would. Because of those matchups, they are preferred. So yeah, I'd probably go in that direction. But it's not to say that Purdy is lesser than Jaden Daniels. I'd still play Purdy over Daniels going forward in that circumstance. Thank you. Let's see here. Abdel sends in a question. Says, start 2 receivers, Cortland Sutton, Drake London, Calvin Ridley. As of this moment, I'm going to start Cortland Sutton and Drake London this week. I will be benching Calvin Ridley. Thank you. Moving on to Juan Gallardo says, trade Hall for Connor and or Harris. I'd rather trade him for Connor as of right now. Thank you. Anakin Women sends in a question. Says, hey Andrew, Tillman is my wide receiver 1. Lost a ton of receivers this year. Do I roll with Waddle as my wide receiver 2? I traded Marvin Harrison for Cooper. Allen as my quarterback. Okay. Also, I have Estime on standby for the flex if Cooper can't go. Okay, got it. Yeah. You play Waddle as your wide receiver 2 and you play Cooper in the flex. You're good to go there. Anakin, thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right. Marion Garcia sends in a question. Says, full PPR flex. Who do I start? Jameson Williams or Elijah Moore? Very good question. If it was me, I'm playing Jameson Williams there. As for your next question, my opponent's flex is Michael Pittman, so need a guy who is easily going to best him. Yeah, I understand. Okay. I know Pittman's... yeah. Okay. So yeah, if listen, if you want the consistent 4 or 5 catches for 40, 50 yards, you can get that out of Elijah Moore without a doubt in my mind this week. Easily. But if you want potential for upside as well on top of it, you go with Jameson Williams. In the absence of Sam Laporta, I would be playing Jameson Williams this week. That is my preferred play. But if you just want the safe points, Elijah Moore provides that. Thank you. All right, moving on. Peyton Whitaker. We took care of that one. Thank you very much. Again, appreciate it. Azathoth sends in a question. PPR Darnold / Cousins or drop 1 for Stafford Rodgers. Are we talking about this week or rest of the season? If it's this week, the preferred quarterback of that group of 4 is Darnold. The second preferred would be, let me see where I have them ranked. As of this week, between those 4 quarterbacks, I have it Darnold 1, Stafford 2, Rodgers 3, Kirk Cousins 4. That's the way that I have it. Now, if we're talking about rest of season, that's a completely different conversation. But yeah, as of right now, I'm going to assume that you're talking about, well, yeah, just keep those guys on roster. I don't think I'm making any swaps at the moment. Thank you. All right, Frostfangs says, Goff or Wilson? I'd rather play Russell Wilson this week. Thank you. Moving on to Meat Sweats, who sends in a very generous super chat. Thank you. Says, big question. I help my wife with my home league every week, and she has a better record than me. I also helped her win the league last year. Do I stop helping her or kick her out of the league next year? No, you keep helping. I mean, look, here's the thing, right? If she wins, theoretically, you win, right? Am I crazy? I don't see how her winning means that you lose in any circumstance, right? I mean, maybe if we're just playing for bragging rights, I get it. But I mean, at the end of the day, just swallow your pride. Even if you get shit talked, like you win, you're winning at the end of the day because you're running the squad, right? So yeah, keep helping. I don't know why you would stop. I think it's a funny question. I know you're joking as a whole, but yeah, you keep. Listen, that's your team as far as I'm concerned. If you're setting the lineup, you're making the waiver decisions or stuff like that, like hell yeah, or if you're like helping with who we flex this week, stuff like that. Listen, just wear it as a badge of honor that you're leading the team to the championship every year. You're good to go. Shane Daughtry sends in a question, says questions in the chat. Thank you, Shane. All right, Shane says, in a half PPR 12-man league, I have Tua, JJ, London, Montgomery, Hunt, Hawkinson, Stevenson, Waddle, Deontay Johnson, Bigsby, May, Anthony Richardson. Trade Hunt and Andrews for James Cook immediately. No questions asked. I get that job done right now, immediately. Thank you very much. Firm handshakes. We're out. Next question, also trade London and / Montgomery for Saquon and Reed. Yes, I would rather have Saquon Reed rest of the season. London has an upcoming bye. Montgomery is the lesser option. I would rather have the Saquon Reed side rest of the season very comfortably. Thank you. All right, moving on to a question that comes in from Eric Lansdowne, who says, how do you deal with the questionable tags? Like Warren's upside, but Spears is healthy. Talk to me. Okay, so here's the thing about questionable tags. It depends on practice designation. So every single team has a website, okay, that is their injury reports, because every team has to legally, within the rules of the National Football League, they have to designate players and their health every single day, whether or not they practice. If they do not designate it, they get financial fines and they can potentially get fined a pick in the upcoming draft. So in this circumstance, okay, when we look at theoretically Jaylen Warren, when we look at his practice schedule, Wednesday did not participate. Thursday did not participate. Friday, limited participation. That is not a good sign. Now, it is a better sign than him not participating at all, but a limited participation leads me to believe that, yes, he's most likely going to play, but he is still fighting through said injury. So in comparison to a player, like a Tyjae Spears, who is fully healthy, no questions asked, is coming also off of a week in which he had 10-plus touches, it's just then a matter of, okay, which of those two is going to have the potential of scoring a touchdown? Neither? Okay, well, then we move past that. Then it's a matter of who's going to get more touches. Probably both going to get 10 touches. Okay, we move past that. Who's going to get themselves more receiving utilization? Well, as of right now, probably going to look in the direction of both being a very equal number. There's a reason why, like, if we continue to go through these steps of like asking ourselves these questions, it's not a surprise that I literally have them ranked back-to-back 28, 29 and a half PPR. Like, I think they're almost identical players. Now, in the event in which we get into a situation where Tony Pollard still is going to get himself lesser opportunities, Tyjae Spears may be more valuable, but I don't even trust that offense. I'd rather associate my running back with an offense that I know is going to be scoring, which going up against Baltimore, especially with Baltimore, I mean, look at what Chase Brown did to Baltimore last week, 9 catches. Like, imagine if there's any sort of glimpse of that potentially happening with Jaylen Warren this week. I know he's dealing with an injury, but considering he was at a limited participation, if he's active, I'm playing him. I prefer him because I know that the matchup is just safer overall. But yeah, I get it. If we had gotten a questionable tag, even though, let's say, for example, he had a full healthy practice, I'd feel more confident about it on a Friday. But considering the limited nature, I get the concern. But I do still believe that Warren has the higher upside because of the matchup, and it implicated it being the highest scoring game of the week. Alrighty, we move on to a question that comes in from McLovin, who says, if you had to pick a defense to stream this week, who would you choose out of these? Jets, Colts, Dolphins, and Browns. As of right now, the order at which I have it ranked. Dolphins 1, Jets 2, Colts 3, Browns 4. Thank you. Let's see here. JH says, wife's team, haha. Currently flexing on my wife's coworkers while she gains all the street cred. At a baby. There you go, JH. That's what I'm talking about. Teamwork makes the dream work. That's right. At a baby, Peter. 26 bands up says Mark Andrews or Kraft. I'd much rather play Mark Andrews. It's not even remotely close there. Not even close. Criminal Minds 06 sends in a follow-up. Thank you, Criminal Minds. Says, agreed, my team is mid due to the bad trades. Sutton/Tillman for Deontay/Warren FML. Yeah, that's rough. Oof, what happened there? I'm 6-4, fifth in the 12 team half PPR. Top 6 make the playoffs. Rest of season moves for the push. Team is out. Yeah, look, if I'm suggesting moves for the push, right? The players that I want on roster going forward are Bucky, Mike Evans, K. Dotton. If not those, I'm also, well, I mean, you already have Ingram, but again, Ingram's going to be on bye next week. So anyway, those are the 3 that I want. I want, okay, this is what I objectively want. I want Cardinals and I want Buccaneers for the fantasy playoffs. That's what I want. If I can get that to happen, I'm more than happy. So Bucky, Evans, Otton, Baker, Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, Connor. That's what I want for the fantasy playoffs. That's what I'm trying to align my teams with. If you can potentially get some of those options, that would be in your best interest. Corey Miller sends in a question, says PPR pick 3. Debo, Tank Dell, Reed, Sutton. Yeah. Out of those available options, Sutton, Reed, and Debo are my 3 suggestions. I am benching Tank Dell there. Corey, thank you. Peter in the live chat says Underdog picks Boswell 1.5 plus field goals, Goff 1.5 plus touchdowns, Hunter Henry 3.5 plus receptions. Actually, I don't mind those at all. Boswell, I think, is the safest of the bunch. Goff could end up screwing us over, but again, he probably won't. I think 1.5 is also very doable. Hunter Henry, it's just a matter of whether or not Austin Hooper is going to get himself more snaps than he did last week. Austin Hooper played the most snaps he had all season last week, and because of it, had himself more receptions than Hunter Henry, which makes it sketchy, but I still do believe that those are fantastic plays across the board there, Peter. Adam Amar sends in a question, says Mooney and Myers for Marv. I have JJ and Pickens. Okay, so the question is, does losing the depth so here's the thing. JJ and Pickens are past their bye week. Marvin Harrison does not play this week. Does losing Mooney and Myers this week jeopardize the rest of your season? If having, both of them off roster and not having one of them within the flex this week jeopardizes your winning chances and then potentially jeopardizes your chances of making the fantasy playoffs, I don't make the move. But in the event in which you are in a solidified position to where you are for sure going to make the playoffs, I would say, sure, let's make the move. Thank you. Seta sends in a question. Seta, where art thou? There it is. Says 12 man. I'm 7-3. PPR. Hurts, Gibbs, Pacheco, Brian Robinson. We have J Jet. We have CD Lamb. We have Pickens, Sutton, BTJ, McBride. Would you have CD or Mooney rest season? Which one would I rather have rest of season? Here's the thing. Considering I don't know the quarterback situation, nor do I know the injury circumstance of CD Lamb, and I can only speculate, I would probably say let's just take Mooney and let's be safe with it. Thank you. Matthew Rosado sends in a question. Says, Bo Nix or Jordan Love? For this week, I'd rather have Bo Nix as starting quarterback. Thank you. Alrighty, let's see here. Looking at the chat, we have Christine who says, hey Andrew, in a half PPR, with Metcalf and Juju coming back, who do you feel better about playing, JSN or DeAndre Hopkins? That's a really good question. I think it depends on, scoring format really does play a factor in this circumstance because I think objectively D-Hop has a little bit of a higher potential for the touchdown upside, which in a half PPR gives him a slight edge. But between the two of them, even in the return of Juju Smith-Schuster, I don't think Juju's return is impactful enough to where it is digging into the overall workload of DeAndre Hopkins. While Metcalf's return is pretty much implicating 10 targets going in his direction in comparison to the vast majority that were in the direction of JSN prior to his bye week. This all being said, if it's my team, Christine, I'm playing JSN this week. I'd like to play Metcalf and JSN as a combined duo. But if Metcalf's not on roster and that's just for context's sake, yes, I'd prefer to play JSN over DeAndre Hopkins this week. Even with the return of those players, I just feel like the implicated offensive upside that JSN is provided, considering the matchup and most likely the script on hand, I'd prefer to play JSN there. Again, we don't know what kind of JSN we're going to see. Last time out against the 49ers had 9 targets. Obviously, last time out that we saw him, 180 yards, 2 touchdowns? Let's see here. Jackson Smith stats. What was the most recent game? 180 on 13 targets. I had assumed that he probably is going to dance between the range of 8 to 10 targets this week because, again, it's going to be a pass-heavy attack. Within that range, again, if they utilize him in the same way in which they did last time, and what I mean by that is, let me just pull this up just so we can, for anybody who has him on roster, you get an understanding as to what I'm referencing to. I can actually give you a visual representation here. All right. So just I'm gonna let me share this really quickly. I'm gonna throw this up on screen. I need to go and make this screenshot happen. Let me save it to my desktop so we can just share this out real quick. So last time out against the LA Rams, JSN obviously had a monster week. You may be wondering, okay, why was it so special besides the target count? The way that they utilize him, the route tree that they put him on was ridiculous. Look at this route tree really quickly. I know I'm cutting myself off, okay? Look at how many deep routes this guy was running. If they use JSN like this henceforth, dude, look at this route tree. The yardage implicated just alone, I mean, the air yards, if they utilize him like this, because again, they're pushing the ball down the field. How many receptions did he have behind 10 yards? One? He had one reception less than 10 yards the other night, or a couple weeks ago against the Rams. If they utilize him like this, dude, like JSN's gonna, I mean, he'll be the guy that we drafted or we wanted to draft. And he will certainly have more upside. Let's hope that they learn something from that performance, of course. Thank you. Alrighty, let's see here. We had a question that came in from Corey Miller. Corey says also, okay, so you said also. So where's your first question, Corey? Corey Miller. Oh, okay. So the second question. Got it, Corey. Thank you. So we take, for sure, the first question, Sutton, Reed, and Debo. That's for sure. Now, as for your second question, Dawson Knox or Will Dissly? I'm preferring Dawson Knox as of right now. Tomorrow morning, he will be back. He will be ranked back-to-back with Dissly. It'll go Knox and Dissly 10 and 11. So really, you can flip a coin on it, but as of right now, I prefer to play Knox. Thank you. Tanner E sends in a question. Says, Deontay, revenge game, or Pop Douglas in the flex? I think I don't want to play either. I'm going to be totally honest. If it's a full PPR, I'd feel more comfortable playing Pop Douglas, though. But I don't want to play Deontay Johnson because I don't think he's going to play that much. Adam Amar says, why do we love Marv? Although corners in playoffs. Also tough corners in playoffs. Yeah, look, the reason that we love Marv is because we expect that the Arizona Cardinals are going to batter teams going forward. So when we look at the upcoming schedule here for the Arizona Cardinals, okay, week 15, sure. Well, here, you know the funny thing is, when we say tough cornerbacks, okay, the last 3 games that he has played, theoretically, have all been tough cornerbacks. Miami with Jalen Ramsey, Chicago with Jalen Johnson, and in New York with Sauce Gardner, right? In 2 of those 3 games, he goes for 20 points. The only game in which he doesn't even do anything against Chicago is because the offense ran for 250 rushing yards, and they didn't have to throw the ball at all. I mean, Kyler Murray had, 11 completions that game? So in no circumstance did they need to even throw the ball in that circumstance. So when we look at the upcoming schedule, Seattle, top 10 matchup. Well, actually, no, scratch that. Top 5 wide receiver matchup. Minnesota, top 5 wide receiver matchup. Then Seattle again, top matchup. Then you have New England, which, yes, even though it's Christian Gonzalez, he has played well against Ramsey and Sauce Gardner, so I'm not worried about that. Then you take on Carolina. J.C. Horn played relatively well against neighbors, but I think Marvin Harrison's still going to be a solid option there. Then you take on the L.A. Rams, who earlier this season, he went for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns against. I don't actually have an issue with the upcoming schedule. I prefer it a lot, especially for those of you who are trying to make the playoffs still. Those Seattle matchups are just, they're fantastic, I think. Christy Brown sends in a question, says, Meat Sweat's wife here. Okay. Do I stop making dinner and folding laundry for him, giving up my trade secrets? Oh man. Look, I don't want to be in the middle of this. Okay, why have I been implicated into something that I don't need to be implicated in? This is the issue that lies in here. Okay, oh man. Yeah, if he's giving, look, here's the thing. I don't even know how to answer this question. I'm not picking sides here, okay? I'm just here to help, okay? That's what I'm here to do, okay? You guys figure it out on your own. That's hilarious. That is very funny. Listen, at this point, I have no answer, but thank you very much. That made me laugh. I appreciate it. All right. Adam Tom, you see what you did, Meat Sweats? You bark. I mean, listen, brother, you just take it easy. You see, if you just shut your mouth, you just keep your head going forward and just, do what you got to do. You will have no problems. Okay, we don't want to have any problems. A happy wife, happy life. Keep it moving. All right, Adam Thompson sends in a question. Says half PPR stack Lad with Herbert or play Jaden Reed? Yeah, I'd rather play Jaden Reed. Thank you. Appreciate it, Adam. Corey Sanders sends in a question. Corey, where is your question? There it is. I see it. It says full PPR. One wide receiver in flex slot open. Okay. So if you're playing these two options, okay. In a full PPR, Corey Sanders, I'm going to suggest you play Higgins and Tillman. Thank you. Christine says, thank you, Andrew. Appreciate you. No problem. Thank you. Nestor says, Steelers defense or swap to another this week? Baltimore question mark? No. I mean, as of right now, yes, you should probably be swapping your defense. Just giving you some context as to which defenses you could potentially play. Here are my top defenses for the week. Minnesota, Houston, Packers. Okay, sorry. I'm not going to... Okay, wait. Vikings, Texans, Packers, Lions, Dolphins, Jets, Rams, Colts, 49ers, Broncos, Browns, Bills, Chiefs. That's top 13 as of right now. Thank you. Let's see here. Deontay or Adunze? Caden, I'm going to play Adunze there. I'm going to be totally honest. JH says, happy birthday, half PPR. Start 2. Hunt, Jacobs, Tyreek. I'd start both of the running backs in a half PPR. Give me Hunt and Jacobs. Also, DST, Packers over the Broncos this week? Yes. I have both on roster. Yep. All right. Okay, here we go. Let's see here. Morales says, choose 2. Ridley, Khalil Shakir, or George Kittle. Morales, can you do me a favor and tell me your scoring format? Is it a half, full PPR, or standard? Thank you. Brian Breezy says, Aaron Jones or London in the flex? I'd rather play Aaron Jones, Brian. Aldwin sends in a question. Says, I'm currently 7-3. Trade deadline is in 1 week. What moves to make? PPR, Kyler, Gibbs, Jacobs, Eckler, Dowdle, JJ, Pickens, Nico, Mooney, Waddle, Pearsall. Okay. Quarterback is perfect for rest of the season, especially coming off of the bye. You'll be clear and ready to go. Gibbs is great. Jacobs is fantastic. Eckler and Dowdle are great in a pinch in which you're going to need to play them potentially as a flex option or in the case of an injury. So I have no issue with those either. So really, you're keeping all of that. Now, if you are in a situation where you could theoretically, somehow, some way, trade Dowdle in order to get potentially Rachaad White in exchange, I would do that. But I don't know if that'll be a possibility. That's just dependent on someone in your league having Rachaad White this week, being desperate in a situation in which they need to have a startable running back this week in his absence. Maybe they can make that trade with you. I was going to suggest you trade for Connor or Bucky, but I don't know if I want to move Gibbs for either of those pieces. I'd probably just keep Gibbs and Jacobs as of right now in comparison, because I do prefer those two henceforth. As for your wide receiver conversation, JJ, Pickens, Nico, I mean, I don't see a way in which we're starting anybody else the rest of the season. You're very strong in that scenario. Potentially, you could try to move Mooney, Waddle, Pearsall, maybe go get Mike Evans, maybe try to go get. Let me go look at the wide receiver strength of schedule because you're 7-3, you're making the playoffs, right? Like that's a given. So if we're just looking towards the situation in which, let's see here, where are we at? If we go look at the rest of season strength of schedule at wide receiver accordingly, like I'd like to go after Jaden Reed. I'd like to go after neighbors for the fantasy playoffs. I'd like to go after, that's basically it. I mean, like T. Higgins would be solid. I think Evans is great, but that's it. You keep what you have. You have 3 of the top probably 8 wide receivers rest of season already. So there's not really a variable change necessary there. So that's my only suggestion, Aldwin. Otherwise, well done with the construction of the team thus far. Ando says half PPR, London or Reed. I'd rather play Reed there, Ando. Thank you. Dill says London or CeeDee Lamb. I'd rather play London. Thank you. Alonzo Jones says Debo or Tillman. I'd rather play Debo. Next question, Pitts or Knox. I'd rather play Pitts. Charlene says, if you pick up Tolbert, do you think he's fool's gold? Is he fool's? Where's Brandon Cooks? That's my question. Let's see here. Is Brandon Cooks even practicing? Let's see here. Let's see, Cooks. Has he even been designated to return? That's my question. So let me go and I'm going to actually go look this up right now. Brandon Cooks is still on the IR. So no, I don't actually think he's fool's gold. Considering he's not returned yet, that means his knee injury is a little bit more significant than we originally anticipated. Okay, in the event in which we do not have CeeDee Lamb active, Ferguson is the number 1 receiver. The number 2 receiver is Tolbert, and the number 3 receiver is Dowdle. So I don't think he's fool's gold. He'll still get himself enough opportunity. He's still a professional wide receiver to where he'll still be fantasy relevant, but like in a lower, wide receiver 3, higher end wide receiver 4 option. So like rankings between like wide receiver 35 to 44, something like that for rest of season in the absence of CeeDee Lamb. Because again, he'll be having to pull number one cornerback coverage without Brandon Cooks out there, which is not fun. Don Ray Morales sends in a question. You know what? Speaking of Don Ray, there was another Morales that sent in a question. I was asking them to qualify whether it is what their scoring format was. Let me scroll back up and let me see where that question was. Where's the other Morales? Disappeared. Okay, how about Don Ray? Says in a half PPR, should I trade Marshawn Lloyd for Braylon or Ray Davis or hold? It depends. Who do you have on roster? Let's see here. Okay, so if you have, for example, Breece Hall on roster, I'm trading for Braylon Allen. If you have James Cook on roster, I'm trading for Ray Davis. If you have Josh Jacobs, I think I'd rather have Emmanuel Wilson. So yes, I'm trading Marshawn Lloyd away if you have any of those alternatives. Anyway, continuing on, also rank in order from starting for the flex: Braylon Allen, Ray Davis, Deontay Johnson, and Jordan Addison. If I was ranking them for this week, I would rank it as number 1, Jordan Addison, number 2, Deontay Johnson, number 3, Braylon Allen, number 4, Ray Davis. Thank you. All right. Anthony says, yo, I traded Jacobs for Tillman and Higgins in a full PPR. How do you feel about it? It depends on what the rest of your running back depth looks like. Look, Josh Jacobs for the fantasy playoffs has an incredible strength of schedule. The 3 games there are top 5. He should dominate and be a fantasy championship winner in that span, weeks 15 through 17. But in the event in which you have studs that are better than Josh Jacobs, you have Bijan, you have Taylor, you have Breece Hall or something like that. I don't know. You have studs across the board. In the event in which you have that and you needed the wide receiver depth, I have no issue with the trade. But that's in the event in which you need the wide receiver depth. Otherwise, if you had already, structure your team, well, yeah, you wouldn't make the trade unless you need a wide receiver. So I'm okay with it. It's fine. Jeff Joyner in the chat says, full PPR, I dropped Love for Herbert. Did I F up? No, I mean, Herbert's pretty strong schedule going ahead. The thing is, Jordan Love is, I think, objectively just the better fantasy quarterback. He may not be at times the better IRL quarterback, but in fantasy, again, when healthy, I think if I'm not mistaken, of the last 20 games he has played, like 18, no, it's probably less. It's like 16 of the last 20 or maybe 17 of the last 20 games he's played has been 2 or more touchdowns scored. So he is objectively the more consistent option. Like if you're just going to get yourself 2 to 3 touchdowns for sure, that's Jordan Love. And especially considering his fantasy playoff schedule and the upcoming kind of nature that they're going to have to win out to get into the wild card picture, I would say that, Jordan Love is the preferred, but, Justin Herbert's not that far behind him in terms of context of rest of season potential and upside. Who's better start this week, Warren or Spears? I'd rather play Warren. Assuming, again, he's playing. Combat Cash Club sends in a question. It says, must win in a full PPR. Start Estime, Mooney, or Estime. Okay, yeah. ETN, Mooney, or Estime. Sorry. If I'm starting one of those 3, I am starting Darnell Mooney in a full PPR. Thank you. Happy birthday, my guy. Thank you. I appreciate that. Paul Gonzalez says, did he just say Pitts versus Denver over Knox versus Kansas City? Correct. You'll see it tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, we're going to start at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll have up-to-date rankings in terms of top 36 running backs, wide receivers, top 16 quarterbacks, tight ends, top 12 kickers and defenses. I will, in fact, have Pitts ahead of Knox this week. Thank you. John Curtis says full PPR. Between Chubb, Tillman, or London, I'd play Tillman out of the bunch. Crix Cod says happy advantageous birthday. Thank you, man. Andrew, you're the man full PPR. I have Brian Robinson Jr. and Eckler. Should I trade Eckler for Devontae Adams? Yes, absolutely. Look, if you can get a wide receiver that is going to start for you rest of the season in comparison to Eckler, who's going to be a bench flex option, I would absolutely make that swap. Fantasy Forecast sends in a question. Says, I traded my BTJ for Jennings. Thoughts? No issue at all. Again, with the potential that, Trevor Lawrence may not play rest of season, not only because their record is absolutely shot. They have no fantasy potential, they have no playoff potential. They have no playoff potential. Because their chances are shot in that circumstance, he's dealing with a shoulder injury. They would most likely rather sit him and prepare for next year rather than throw him out there and potentially force him to get injured and require surgery. So, in this circumstance, with the upcoming schedule of the fantasy playoffs looking like absolute disaster with Mac Jones, I would love to get out of any BTJ stock that I currently have, which in this case, getting Jennings, I have no issue with. Stephen Drake sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew. You play Titans or Chargers defense this week? Chargers or... Okay, if I had to choose between the Titans and the Chargers defense this week, I'd rather start no defense because I think they're both capable of 0 points. And I'm not even joking. I think you could get negative points from both, potentially. Now, if I had to start one, I'd probably start the Titans and hope that Sam Darnold throws a couple picks to at least get me a baseline of 2 to 3 points. Moving on. Also, Debo, Metcalf, or Lamb and a half PPR. Debo, Metcalf, or Lamb. As of this week, the order at which I currently have it structured is Debo 1, Metcalf 2, Lamb 3. Thank you. Giggs sends in a question. Says trade Jacobs for Tyreek Hill full PPR. I would rather keep Jacobs unless you are, again, stacked the running back. If you have Bijan, Jonathan Taylor, and Gibbs, and Jacobs is your odd man out, then sure, we can go about this. But otherwise, I'd like to keep Jacobs in the long run. I guess it's just very much so dependent on what your current roster has constructed with. You know, how many running backs, how many wide receivers, what's your, desperation of need at wide receiver in comparison, etc. If I have Jacobs right now, I would rather trade him for Puka instead of a Tyreek Hill because, again, that wrist injury is very much so sketchy. What does it say? Goff or Herbert? Okay. Prosperous. I would rather play Herbert this week. Dill says start 2 Bijan, Henry, Gibbs. Full PPR. Must-win game. I'm playing Bijan and Henry. Jay says, Andrew, pick one for the flex. Reed or Montgomery or Cook. Depends on format. If we're talking about a full PPR, I'm probably going in the direction of Reed. If we're talking about a half PPR, I'm probably going in the direction of playing Montgomery. Standard Montgomery as well. Thank you. Moving on to a question that came in from Fantasy Forecast says, trade my A.J. Brown for his Pickens. I don't mind that. Honestly, I do not mind it at all. I'm okay with that trade. You've already had your A.J. Brown play, though. So you're not going to be able to take advantage of the matchup this week. So you could give it a week, wait out, and see what what Pickens is able to accomplish. But yeah, I don't mind the trade. I think they're relatively equal value rest of season. Andrew Montoya sends in a question. Says, hi, Andrew. Salutations. Big week and a half PPR. I need to start 2 wide receivers and a flex. Pickens, Adams, Hill, Kelsey. Okay. 2 wide receivers, 1 flex. Pickens, auto start. Kelsey, auto start. If it's between Hill and Adams, do I trust Hill? No, I would play Adams there. Sorry. No. Wait, hold up. Let me think about this. Recalibrating, checking rankings. Wait a minute. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Do I want to play Hill or Adams? Dude, it's so okay. It's sketchy, but I think I'm going to play Hill there. I'd go Pickens, Hill, and Kelsey. That's the way that I'd go about it in a half PPR. Thank you. Sebastian, thank you. I appreciate that. Schnabel says PPR, start. Okay. Schnabel, why do you say PPR and then you ask about kickers? PPR has nothing to do with kickers. Dicker, McPherson, or Bates? I'd play Jesse Bates this week. Is it Jesse Bates? Is that his name? Why am I blanking out? Yeah, it's Jake Bates. Who's Jesse Bates? Wait. That's the safety for the Atlanta Falcons. That's what I was about to say. I was like, I know that name, but I don't know why I'm getting it mixed. Okay. Timbo says, Higgins, Tillman, Pickens, Mooney, pick 3. Yeah, Higgins, Tillman, and Pickens. You got it, brother. That's the 3. Mr. Jones is awesome. Says Geno Smith or Sam Darnold. I'd rather play Geno this week. Alonzo Jones says PPR 6 and 4, second place with second and most points scored. Okay, RBs are Henry, Bijan, Hunt. Wide receivers are CeeDee Lamb, Kupp, Neighbors, Debo, Tillman. Tight ends are Pitts and Kraft. Should I try to trade CeeDee or write it out? I would try to trade him. If you can get Mike Evans, let's do it. Thank you. Moving on to Frosty, who says, that rare McPherson fake field goal, wheel out. Yeah, guaranteed touchdown, of course. Imagine. What was the last time we saw a fake field goal? Actually, though. That's I don't know when the last time was, and that in itself is objectively sketchy. I don't know why more teams don't go for it. I mean, I guess it is a very difficult thing to pull off. I think the success rate is probably astronomically low, but it is what it is. Andrew Montoya says, hey, Andrew, what kind of value do you think I can get for Wilson in a full PPR? I'd imagine you still could be able to get a top, like you should be able to trade him for a Cooper Kupp. I'd imagine you should be able to. I'd imagine you should be able to get him. You should be able to move him for a Mike Evans. I'd love to get a George Pickens in that circumstance. I'd love to go after an Amon-Ra and A.J. Brown, stuff like that. I don't know how likely that is, but I'd hope that the prior performances before last week speak more volumes to what his potential is in comparison to what he did last week. I would hope that your league mates would look past what his most recent performance is. I know that fantasy football and the NFL is more of a what have you done for me lately rather than what are you going to do for me. So I get why maybe he's undervalued by some of your league mates. Ron the Don says Raiders have ruled out their starting center and left guard. So I was leaning Dolphins defense over the Green Bay Packers. Caleb Williams has been awful though. So that's a tough one. Yeah, listen, I think they're both okay. It's really just a matter of like, it's Caleb Williams with a new offensive coordinator, which we would assume that the offense is going to be a little bit better. But then again, are they? Like, I don't know. I think they're both top 5 defenses for me this week. So I'm comfortable either way. I think they're both, I don't think there's a wrong answer, to be honest, between both of them. I think they're both going to play well. Bugs19 says Kincaid is out right or Gesicki? Really good question, but do I want to play Brock Wright? Sure, let's play Brock Wright over Gesicki this week. That's fine. Dre the Great says, I'm 7-3 in a PPR. Running backs are Chase, Swift, Stevenson, Estime. Wide receivers are Lamb, Adams, Evans, Shakir, Leggett. Tight ends are Hawkinson and Kate Otten. Quarterbacks are Baker and Goff. Any potential moves? You're 7-3, so you're pretty much structured to make the playoffs, okay? So you're looking good. If I was in your position, though, Lamb is gone off my team. He is gone. I'd like to get Jaden Reed. I'd like to get Mike Evans. I'd like to get Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf. Those are the kind of players I'm willing to go after. Drake London's. Please and thank you. If you can get something better than that, bruh, get it. Just hurry. But yeah, if you can get that kind of caliber of wide receiver, absolutely we make the move. But in terms of the rest of your team, I think across the board, if you can position yourself to move either Stevenson or Swift and try to get back either Tracy, Bucky, or Connor, I think that's also another great move. If you can somehow get Jacobs off of them, that would be great as well. You already have Evans on your team, so never mind, that's fine. But yeah, that's what I'm looking towards. Otherwise, I like Baker for the rest of the season, as you know. Thank you. G Medina says PPR, flex, James Cook or Tillman, and rest of the season, Aubrey or Boswell. I'd rather have Boswell over Aubrey. As for who we're flexing, James Cook or Tillman, honestly, I'm playing Tillman. Thank you. Andrew Gang sends in a question, says, hey, Andrew, questions in the chat. Thank you. I see it. Says, sitting on 7-3, I got offered 2 trades from the same guy. Any worth taking, ? Chase Brown / Achane for my Saquon and Tillman, or I got offered ETN for my BTJ. Other running backs are Hubbard and Spears. Okay, so you're solid at wide receiver. Am I trading away Saquon? So here's the issue, okay? Going forward, well, it's not really an issue, but here's my concern. So if we look at the Carolina Panthers' upcoming schedule, it is objectively just horrid. They have the Chiefs, they have the Buccaneers, they have the Eagles. 3 really, really good run-stop defenses. Then they take on the Dallas Cowboys on December 15th, which is great. But then they have the Cardinals and then the Buccaneers. Their upcoming schedule is shambles. So having to start Hubbard every week is not the greatest overall scenario. But am I willing to... If Tillman is not starting for your team, if Tillman is a fill-in guy, Andrew, and you would be immediately starting this too. If Tillman is like wide receiver 5, no, you know what? Damn. Let me check something really quickly. That's a tough trade because sending away Saquon, I'd hate to do it. I really would. I have a massive hesitation in doing so, even when I'm getting back those 2 studs at running back. Okay, let me see here. Okay, and then what does we have with Chase Brown? Okay. If it's my team and Tillman is a fodder guy, I take the deal. I take Chase Brown and I take Achane and I run to the hills. Is giving up Saquon going to make me sick to my stomach? Abso-fucking-lutely. But I have no interest in that ETN deal. I would want to get another running back that is a little bit more solidified. Or you just don't do anything. You hold and you just keep Saquon and you just hope that Hubbard can pull it out in these tough matchups ahead. Now again, you're 7 wins in. So when we look at the Panthers' schedule ahead, in terms of the fantasy playoffs, the Panthers have they have decent schedule. Dallas, Arizona, Tampa Bay. Honestly, if I'm you, I'd probably just hold. I think it's a little bit too sketchy to move because I'd hate to give up Saquon. You know what? Yeah, don't take it. Saquon probably, especially considering his 3 matchups in the fantasy playoffs are Pittsburgh, Washington, and Dallas. He has the easiest strength of schedule amongst all running backs. He could probably go for 30 points a game throughout that span. Now, is he going to? Let's hope so. I keep Saquon. I'd roll with Hubbard and let it ride. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to change it. Let's keep it as is. If somebody wants to trade for Tillman and give you a running back, you know what? Scratch it. Just take the ETN trade. Get a little bit more depth just in case. Because if the fantasy, yeah, let's do that. I've gone 6 ways around this. But I have now come to my final designation. We take the ETN trade for BTJ. And we keep Saquon going forward. Thank you. Damn, that took forever. But Andrew, we got there. Nick L sends in a question. Says, hey man, having a good birthday? Listen, brother, you've been around long enough. You know the deal here. Thank you, Nick. Let's see here. I started McLaurin. I'm currently 5-5 in a start 7. I have Gibbs, Christian McCaffrey, JJ starting. Need to flex out of Flowers, Chase Brown, Higgins, and London. Okay. Of the available options you have, I am flexing Chase Brown there. And I think you're good to go. Did Terry McLaurin leave you high and dry? Absolutely. But hopefully the rest of your options are going to be able to compensate for it, of course. Thank you. Greater Love Music sends in a question. Thank you, Greater Love. Says, half PPR. I need a pick for my tight end and my flex. Pick between Hawkinson and Njoku, Mostert, or Downs. Would it be crazy to start both tight ends? No, I would start both tight ends. That's going to be my suggestion there, Greater Love Music. Play both tight ends. Thank you. Rob Jackson says, hey, Andrew, in a full PPR, Pearsall, Christian Watson, or Wicks in the flex? Wow. I'd play Pearsall 1, Wicks 2, Christian Watson 3. Thank you. Moving on to a question from Smell My Fingers, who says, how's my team looking going into the playoffs? We have Bo, as in Debo, right? I'm assuming that's who Bo is. JD. No, you have Bo Nix. Never mind. You have Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, Christian McCaffrey, Kamara, Hunt, DKT, as in Higgins, Tillman, Tank, Kincaid, Henry. I know I should make a strong move for a tight end, right? I mean, you could make a move for a tight end, but I would try. I mean, look, you want to. Okay, so this is my suggestion as it currently stands. Smell my fingers. If you can, trade Kareem Hunt this week, okay? Because you're already looking towards the playoffs. I assume you have a solidified enough record that you know that you're going to make the playoffs. If I was in your position, I am taking Kareem Hunt and I'm knocking on a door of a team in your league which currently does not have a running back or doesn't have a strong enough flex and are in a position to where they have to win out and they have to get a victory this week. I would offer to give them Hunt and potentially one of your 2 tight ends for their tight end. If you can do so, you're pretty much giving them like, hey, this is going to help you win this week. You need to win this week. Hey, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that you're desperate, and then you get their tight end and then just keep it moving. If that tight end is either Cade Otton or McBride, even better, because they'd feel more obligated to making that trade because that player is not impacting their roster this week. So that's what I'd suggest. McBride, Otton, let's go after one of them. Let's use Hunt to accomplish that. Thank you. Stephen Drake says, would you rather have Romo, Moody, or Fairbairn? For rest of season, the order at which I would go about it is Fairbairn 1, Moody 2, and Romo 3. Thank you. Also, you're right. I don't feel good about the Chargers defense. Other options are Ravens, Patriots, or Falcons. I don't like any of those options across the board. Okay, if I had to play one of those defenses, Falcons, that's it. That would be it. Falcons would probably be the best. I don't even like that as a suggestion, though. Dre the Great says, good deal. Swift has tough end of schedule. I don't know. Yeah, you're talking to Frosty. Never mind. Aaron Robles says, Andrew, hello. In a half PPR, would you trade Jonathan Taylor and DJ Moore for St. Brown, Hawkinson, and James Conner? Yes, immediately, 10 times out of 10. The deal is already done. It's in my roster. I am running to the hills. I am celebrating. I am popping bottles in my house if I make that trade, Aaron. Take the St. Brown, James Conner side. Absolutely. Meets West says, happy birthday. Thanks for playing along. My wife and I are laughing. Thank you. I appreciate you making me laugh. That was very fun. Thank you. Dudeman012 says, full PPR start 1, Ridley, Quentin Johnston, DJ Moore. Ridley, Quentin Johnston, DJ Moore. As of this week, I'm playing Ridley. Very comfortably, in fact. GK sends in a question, says, PPR, Kraft, Knox, or Disley? As of those 3, the order at which I have it is Kraft, Knox, Disley. Exactly like that. Thank you. Also, I have Kraft, but I can grab one of the others off of the waiver wire, streaming the Rams this week, but the Dolphins, Browns, and Saints are on the wire. I prefer to play the Dolphins over the Rams, but I have them both in the top 6, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see where I have the Rams in conjunction with the other one. Let me see it real quick. So as it currently stands, I have it as Dolphins, Jets, Rams. So Dolphins is my number 5 defense on the week. Rams is my number 7. So I don't mind playing the Dolphins there. Again, like somebody said earlier, the Raiders have deemed two of their starting offensive linemen out. I don't know why I said it like that. Let me see here. So yeah, if I look at their team, their center, Andre James, out. Their offensive guard, Cody Whitehair, is out. But otherwise, everybody else is pretty much in. Anyway, in terms of their overall circumstance, yes, I'd like to play the Dolphins, but I still do believe that the Rams are a great defense. I wouldn't pick up any of the other tight ends. I'd continue to roll with Kraft. Thank you. G Medina sends in a question. Says, half PPR, do I drop Downs for Jennings on the waivers? I would. In a half PPR, I would. Because Flacco's probably not coming back. They wouldn't. Dude, the Colts, there needs to be a case study done on the dysfunctionality of the front office and the coaching of what the Colts have presented this season. Going flip-flopping like this just speaks to a lack of leadership. I swear to God, it is unbelievable how we can go from Anthony Richardson to Joe Flacco, back to Anthony Richardson, back to Joe Flacco, back to Anthony Richardson. What are we doing? Why? Just play the young guy. You are invested in him. Let him struggle. It's okay if you don't win games. You know what the funny thing is? There's almost like a delusion. There's almost like I don't know. There's a hopeless, not even hopeless. There's an abundance of hope in the organization for the Colts that makes them think that they are Super Bowl bound. Why are you trying to make the playoffs? Get a higher pick overall and get an actual player who can at least cover at corner. Make an actual, intentional effort to help improve the quarterback. Then subsequently after, if he's not good enough in future years, dump him. That's fine. You don't have to give him a second contract. But anyway, that's a rant. I crashed out. We're continuing on. Anadi says, how valuable is Adam Thielen? He will probably be the wide receiver 1 of that team going forward, if I had to guess. He has the most experience and the greatest rapport with Bryce Young. So I'd assume that he's going to be highly implicated going forward. All right. Jacob Darusha sends in a question. Says, in a half PPR, 1 and 2 wide receiver. Okay. 1 and 2 wide receiver are Jaden Reed. It's okay. The autocorrect kind of screwed you over there. Jaden Reed, Puka Nacua, and my wide receiver 3, pick one between Lockett, Bateman, and Addison. Between those 3, the order at which I currently have it structured, let me actually see. What do I have Bateman in comparison to Lockett? I think I have Lockett ahead of him. Do I not? I do have Lockett ahead of him. So it would be Lockett, Bateman, and then Addison. That's the order at which I currently have it, Jacob. It says I'm going up against Saquon. Yeah. I think I'm good to go there with Lockett as your number 3. Bateman number 2. Addison 3. Thank you. Okay. So like I talked about earlier, I do want to go ahead and put together a couple entries via Underdog. Again, for those of you who have any suggestions, potentially stuff that you have seen in this overall circumstance, let me know. Again, these are the plays that I like. These are the stuff that I suggested in terms of the in terms of the Hidden Gems episode for this week. These are the plays. If you want to potentially look at them, you could either pause the screen or you could potentially go ahead and travel on over to that video and check them out. But either way, in terms of plays for tonight, or plays for this weekend specifically, if we go to the NFL, again, you're going to see me potentially copy a lot of the things. Let me see, is Bauer still at 3.5 receptions? I'm going to assume that where I got it was, yeah. So it's no longer available with 3.5. So 4.5 is a little bit sketchier, but I'd still probably take that for those of you who are wondering. Anyway, continuing on. There was a question just sent in from It's Envy, who says, Envy Adams. If you guys know the reference of Envy Adams, that is let me tell you, one of the greatest movies. Absolute masterpiece. Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Let me tell you. Absolute masterpiece. All right, anyway, It's Envy says, need a wide receiver 2 and flex, full PPR. Jacoby Myers, Higgins, BTJ, Shakir, Hawkinson, and also Buffalo or Las Vegas defense. Okay, if I'm picking between Buffalo or LV defense, I'd rather play Buffalo's defense. Moving on to your prior question, wide receiver 2 and flex. Of the available options that you have here, in a full PPR scoring format, it is a very difficult question to answer, but the way that I would go about it, your wide receiver 2 is Shakir, and I honestly probably play Hawkinson in your flex. I'd go Shakir and Hawkinson as your wide receiver flex for this week. Very difficult, but in a full PPR, they are the preferred. Is there anything on CeeDee Lamb? As in for the underdog? I don't know. Is there anything on Lamb? I mean, considering they have all these, this is the assumption he plays. Usually, I would trust the book rather than anything in terms of if whether or not a player is going to play. Principal Meyer says Devontae Smith sold. I told y'all he was going to sell though, right? I've told you specifically when I looked at his overall snap share from the slot position, he is gone there. Devontae Smith that we knew and loved from the earlier half of the season, for some reason they are not utilizing him in the same role and they have just evaporated his overall fantasy value. So going forward, very difficult to trust. Eric in the chat says Lamb is questionable now though, so I was curious if that changed anything. Yeah, we don't want to play Lamb, but if we have to, we will. That's pretty much where we're at. Juan in the chat had asked Lamb, Jennings, or Myers. I'm playing Myers 1, Jennings 2, Lamb 3 in that order. Access MIA says SMH. All right, Access, have a good one. I don't know. What are you shaking your head for, brother? All right, let's see here. Okay, so in terms of potential plays here, this is one that I had in mind, and you guys tell me if I'm completely just brain melted or if I'm on something, okay? Or if I'm on to something, not on something, okay? I'm not on anything. All right, everybody stay calm. So, in terms of when I talked about the quarterback rankings from earlier this week, there's a trend of where teams are giving up consecutive weeks of multiple touchdowns to opposing quarterbacks. Now, what defenses am I referring to? First and foremost, we talked about it. Over the course of 8 of the last 9 games, the Atlanta Falcons have allowed 2 touchdowns to opposing quarterbacks, right? So, in this circumstance, if we're looking at Bo Nix going higher than 1.5 touchdowns, I think that is within the realm of possibility considering the Atlanta Falcons have allowed that for 8 of the last 9 games. Then, if we talk about the potential, which, of course, we have seen, let's see here. Where was the other one? Yeah. So when we talk about Russell Wilson, who's on screen, 5 of the last 6 quarterbacks, 2 or more passing touchdowns. I would assume that this is potentially within the realm of possibility. And we're getting plus multis, which honestly is kind of helpful. And then if we continue on, who's another team that has given up a bunch? If we move on to Seattle, they've given up 2 or more touchdowns to 5 of the last 6 quarterbacks that they have played. This is a little bit less of a multi, but still 3 of these plays for 6.4x I think is relatively solid. Now, we could continue it on, which honestly I kind of want to, in the idea of playing Stroud here against Dallas. This is also at a plus multi, which very much so is, I don't know why it's at a plus multi. I would imagine that playing against Dallas should lead to 2 passing touchdowns, but I don't know. I feel like if I go to 4 legs, it's going to start to muddy the waters to an extent. So I might just want to leave it as such or make multiple trips where I'm taking so maybe let's say, for example, is there any, what is this, 50% profit boost for MMA and NHL? Anybody have any MMA or NHL picks for tonight? Please and thank you. In terms of this play, right? If I put $10 on it, 10 for 64, I would take, right? But then if I go in I put together Burrow throwing 2 touchdowns, then I take Stroud. Come on, Stroud. Sorry, if I'm looking up, it's because I'm looking at my second monitor, which I have this displayed on. And then we go for example, let's say that's another one of those sketchy ones. I mean, we could just leave it at that. Maybe just Lamar as the other. That's a 5.56x. This is another one that I honestly do not mind. This is what I'm thinking. I don't know about you guys. Sam in the chat says, hey, Andrew, half PPR Dobbins or James Cook this week? Need a good floor. As of right now, okay, so here is the sketchiness with both situations. Cincinnati and Kansas City are very good in terms of stopping the run as of late. Now, as a whole, it's really going to be dependent on who between the 2 running backs is going to get the goal line utilization, and then additionally, who is going to be given the receiving workload. With those factors, I would rather play James Cook this week. Thank you. I think I'm going to take this one as well. I feel like this is relatively safe. 10 for 56. These are not bad plays. Okay. John Jones got, let's see here. What does John Jones got? If I go to MMA, all right, so John Jones. Oops. All right, so John Jones at the moment, what does he got here? So he's got okay, so here's the question, right? We know that John Jones is going to win. We know this. I think we objectively all know this. So if he's going to win, the question is, how does he win? Can I just bet him to win? Finishes? No. Knockouts? No. Submission? Okay, so What is a finish? Is a finish count as a submission as well? Because what I'm going to assume, what I'd like to predict is that John Jones's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is so elite that he's going to make Stipe tap. That's what I'm going to assume. So it's a 0.68. I think this is probably safe, right? Now, for me to be able to take advantage of this like 50% multiplier on the MMA, it has to be only MMA. So I need one more other thing attached to it. Michael Chandler's a pretty good fighter. So is Charles Oliveira, but I don't know who. Are they fighting each other? Yeah, I have no idea who's going to win that. I don't watch enough MMA. Would Jordan Love and Dejuan Golden says, will Jordan Love and Mahomes suffice rest of the season? Absolutely yes. Ray Gamer in the chat says, start one in a standard, 6 point per passing touchdown. Pick up Taysom Hill versus the Browns, Jonnu Smith versus the Raiders, or Hunter Henry versus the Rams. In a standard league where you get 0 points per reception, Ray Gamer, I'm playing Taysom Hill there. Thank you. Axel Alberto says, would you flex Tillman, Ridley, or Chase Brown? I would rather flex Chase Brown out of the group, especially if it's half PPR, full PPR, doesn't matter. I think that's the preferred. Jet in the chat says, thoughts on JSN rest of season? I have Mike Evans traded Tank Bigsby for Tank Dell last week, then have JSN and Deontay Johnson. I think JSN has to be a starter for you rest of season, and I'm going to hope that his targets are going to continue to increase. And like I showed earlier, and I'll go ahead and once again present really quickly before we get to John Jones by submission. I mean, I think a finish, as long as a submission counts as a finish, then that works. But when I was showing earlier in terms of JSN's route tree, last time against the Rams, look at the deep routes that he was running. Again, only one of them, which is this little like short route in which he had himself he runs out and then digs back in. Outside of that, everything is deep down the field. If they're going to utilize him in the same kind of circumstance, man, I would love to see it. And JSN will have even more value going forward. Dawson Knox or Ricky Pearsall? That is not a question I actually know the answer to right now. Someone said what Frosty said. What did Frosty say? Yes, finish means that the fight is stopped and it doesn't go to scorecards. Okay, so yeah, finish is going to work there. So what else is going to be a potential? Anybody know anything else? Let's see here. Esteve or Waddle? I'd rather play Waddle, especially if it's a full PPR. Angel Montero says, I think it's at plus 500. What are we talking about? John Jones by submission? Is it really? Submission. Well, over here, it's 1.39. Doesn't look great here, is it? Is there a way to like put him getting knockdowns? Let's see here. Like significant strides. If I take lower on that, I could theoretically do that to where like if I assume John Jones is going to finish Stipe, I would assume lower on this and then take that, right? More on significant strikes for Oliveira. Aha, here we go. Now we have an expert in the chat. Here we go. Hold up. All right, there you go. So if I throw the 50% profit boost onto it, okay, it's a 2.56. So it's like $10 for 25. I don't mind that. That works. Any what's it called? Is Mechie a good pickup? I mean, look, I think Mechie, we'll have to wait and see. I think if you want to pick him up before this week occurs, you can. If anything, he's going to be the wide receiver 3 behind Nico Collins, Tank Dell, which again, this offense, as they've proven already thus far this season, they cannot support 3 wide receivers. They're incapable of doing so. So if Mechie is going to be the third man out, I don't expect him to be enough of an option to where I'm picking him up and safely starting him in an upcoming performance. Schnabel says, I have Chris Olave in the IR, and this week my league has a trade deadline. Whose door should I be knocking on for a trade? Currently have Mooney. I mean, look, if you're looking for trades, again, I've mentioned it before. I want to trade for guys like Mike Evans at wide receiver. I'm trying to trade for Jaden Reed at wide receiver. I'm trying to trade for Bucky Irving, James Conner, Tyrone Tracy at running back. I am also looking for McBride and Otten if you need a tight end. Thank you. Mo Money sends on a question. Says, trade Lamb, Montgomery, and Smitty for Evans and Conner. I'd say yes, but if you have enough wide receiver depth to be able to compensate losing 2 starters, only if you can compensate with the remainder of your roster being relevant. Magpie sends in a question, says full PPR, Lamb or Mooney this week? We don't even know if Lamb's going to play. In the event in which he does play, I would play him over Mooney. But again, we'll have to wait until tomorrow to know the full status. Now, in order to specifically kind of go over this, if I go to NFL Week 11, I want to see when the Dallas Cowboys game takes place. So the Dallas Cowboys play tomorrow on, oh no, so they play on Monday. Okay, so we're not even, okay, so that makes it sketchier. So he popped up on the injury report with a back injury. Tomorrow, you'll have to decide whether or not you want to play Mooney at 1 p.m. in the afternoon or roll with Lamb potentially missing on Monday night. Again, if by tomorrow there is no indicator by noon tomorrow PST, if there's no indicator on Lamb being out, I'm going to wait and I'm going to play him on Monday. And if I need to pick up a pivoting option, I pick up Tolbert and play him instead. Underdog Puka plus 5.5 receptions. I mean, look, if we're going to, well, anyway, so let's just take this. Let's keep this moving. All right, that's a pretty decent play. We go to the NFL. I think I'd rather just take Puka at like 4.5 and not even risk it, right? Like, we're going to go Puka here. I'd rather, look, like, I'm always on the safe side. Like, I'd rather just take that. That's what I take. And I think that's an auto. Like, I mean, what are we talking about? It's Puka Nacua, right? Would it be crazy to start Drake May over Mahomes? I don't think it's crazy, but I wouldn't prefer it as of right now. Any NBA players you suggest to use in Underdog? Let me see what we have here tonight. If the Lakers are playing, again, Austin Reeves tonight, first quarter points, 2.5. Okay. I can go ahead and I can actually, give me a second. Let me go ahead and give you the actual statistic. This is a play that I take every night, and I've taken every night this season for him. I will go into perspective as to how often he hits this in a moment here. Let me just go ahead and... All right, so first quarter, how many points does Austin Reeves typically get? So last time out, Austin Reeves, last night, literally 0. Okay, so that's he was off that night. Typically, it's good that he has the off night because eventually the next night he comes back. And then he hit 2, 3, 4, 5. He has hit 8 of the last 10, higher than this number, 2.5. Okay, last night he missed. He's getting back on track tonight. Don't worry about it, okay? So that's one I like. In terms of other plays that I would theoretically like, is the Denver Broncos playing Denver Broncos? Are the Denver Nuggets playing tonight? If Christian Braun, there's no Braun, how about Denver? Nope, they're not playing tonight. Never mind. Is there any other plays that I specifically like? Is Lauri Markkanen going to play or did he foul out the other night? Because Lauri Markkanen, I think taking something this easy is just an auto. Lauri's pretty much the carry of that offense. I know it's a low multi. I don't care about low multis. I'm just trying to win, guys, right? So that's what we're going with. Okay. So anyway, we've been here for 2 hours. That's typically like where I like to call it. Is there any other plays that tonight I like? Is Domantas Sabonis not playing tonight? That's my only question. Are these Sunday games? If this is 7 p.m. tonight. Okay, so we'll take the Lauri Markkanen in there. We're okay with that. Scrolling back up, is there anything I want to take from that game? No, not really. We'll take the first quarter points there. We're chilling with that. Is he not playing? Okay, interesting. I might take Ingram higher on... Nah, we'll just leave it like this for now. Okay. So we'll make this entry. The multi is relatively low. If I was to theoretically increase to 14.5, it goes up ever so slightly. No, I just take the automatic here. Oh, I just took him out of the list. Nope, that's not what I want. I want Lauri Markkanen back in. Thank you. Boom. Confirm. All right, so that's it. We're continuing on. All right, guys. I'll answer a couple more questions. I'll be back tomorrow morning again, starting at 7 a.m. PST. I'll have updated rankings on screen ready to go. I appreciate y'all. Again, if you guys want to get your questions answered or get my rankings sent to you all encompassing, you can either check out the Patreon. There's a link down in the description. You can sign up via Patreon if that's something that you're interested in. Don't feel obligated to do so, but you get rankings every Thursday and every Sunday morning. Half PPR, full PPR, all encompassing rankings, including flex, all that kind of jazz. And you can ask me unlimited questions throughout the Patreon Messenger and or have access to Discord and the private Discord server. Also, you can get my rankings via Underdog. Again, if you sign up today, you could potentially follow some of the picks that we've made over the course of this week. And signing up gets you those rankings sent to you from my email directly to yours every single Sunday morning for the remainder of the season, if that's something that you're interested in. Again, you have to be eligible based on your current location, whether your state. Again, the map is as such. Let me just go ahead and remove this. Depending on where you're located, it'll determine your eligibility as to whether or not you can sign up and take advantage of that. Okay. So thank you very much. Let's answer a couple more questions and then we're heading out here. Appreciate y'all. All right. Nick Walker says, Dell, Waddle, Amon-Ra, Reed. Start 2. I'm playing Amon-Ra and I'm playing Reed. Thank you. Moving on to Nick Q3435 says, I have Saquon, Gibbs, Mixon, and Connor. Despite having a great schedule, am I realistically ever going to start Connor? Thinking about trading him. You have Saquon, Gibbs, Mixon. No, you probably would never start him because of what you have elsewhere. But there are going to be instances in the fantasy playoffs in which I would consider playing Connor over Gibbs. I would. So really, you don't need to have him on roster. You could trade him away very comfortably. The only thing that I'm going to suggest, Nick, is upcoming is a Mixon bye week. So you might want to hold him for that and then hold him for the fantasy playoffs in case an injury was to occur. But once you get to the fantasy playoffs, no, you wouldn't theoretically start him over the alternatives because they are just so much better of options, I think. So if you want to trade him and get like an elite wide receiver or a tight end, you can. Devon G says, no DeRozan, no Sabonis tonight. Wow. Okay. Interesting. Thank you very much for the insight. Maybe I'll go ahead and I'll put something on there. Any running back for bets? We'll probably talk about that tomorrow. I'll probably put something together and I'll suggest it at the beginning of tomorrow's or in the middle of tomorrow's live stream. Outside of that, again, I appreciate y'all coming through. I'll be back tomorrow morning to answer questions for 3 hours. Again, you can always get my rankings via Patreon and or Underdog. I appreciate y'all. Enjoy the rest of your wonderful Saturday afternoon. I'm cueing the music. And until next time, tomorrow morning, I'll see you guys. Peace. Whoever just asked Jerry Jeudy or Estime, Brendan, play Jerry Jeudy. I'd rather have Stafford in week 14 than Ziggy. AB, I'd rather play Stroud this week. Also flex Puka there. Giraffe Wakanda. I'd rather play Winston over Anthony Richardson this week. Don EG says Stafford plus QJ over the Lamb and Cook. No, I'd rather have Lamb and Cook. All right, this is the post-song questions. Does anybody have a question that I did not answer that in the final 15 seconds of this stream are going to type it in, clutch up, and get the question answered? Otherwise, I try to talk over the music there a little bit, but this is like the post-stream clarity. I appreciate y'all with the happy birthday wishes. If there's nothing else coming through, that'll be it. There's nothing else. Everyone's left. That's beautiful. I'm basically just talking to the ether. I'm talking to the universe at this point. I'm talking to oh, there it is. There's Frosty. Andrew, top anime this season, Bleach or Blue Lock? I don't watch Bleach. I've never heard of Blue Lock. The only animes I've seen recently, I started watching JoJo. I started watching Dan to Dan. I got to catch up on My Hero Academia. But that's only because I've been waiting for the dub to come out. EBA170 says, I'm thinking Tillman over Devontae at the moment. Am I crazy? No, you're not crazy. I wouldn't talk you out of it. That's what I'd say. Magpie says, what will you do special for your birthday? Do special for my birthday? Nothing. I'm literally going to work on rankings right now, and I'll see you guys in the morning. I'm not going to stop working on rankings until I get to 7 a.m. Oh, what a classic. I didn't even hear your comment over the music. Oh, Sean, I apologize. So I said, in regards to your Stafford plus Quentin Johnston over Lamb and Cook, is that like a super flex question, Sean? If that's a super flex question, I'd rather play Stafford this week. But if that's not a super flex question, and we're just talking about like a trade, I'd rather have the Lamb and Cook side. You're a dub guy? Listen, Frosty, let me explain to you something, okay? Because I work 18 hours a day, I cannot look at my second monitor. So I cannot waste time reading subtitles, brother. I mean, what are we talking about here? Of course, I gotta I gotta just let it play in my ear and then every now and then pop over to the other screen. Otherwise, what am I gonna do? Spend my entire effort of 3 hours reading subtitles? No shot. I don't got that kind of time in the end of the day. Ramesh says, I need 2 in the flex. London, Tank Dell, JMO, Pearsall, and Pollard. As of right now, the PPR, yeah, okay, thank you. That actually helps a lot. London has to play, and so does Tank Dell, I think, in a full PPR format. Pollard would be the next man up after those 2. All right, guys. I appreciate y'all. Have a great rest of your day. And outside of that, it's a super flex question. Got it. Yeah, Stafford has to play. Absolutely, I'm playing Stafford there. Now, do you have to play Quentin Johnston with Stafford? Why can't you just play Stafford and Cook? You know what I mean? I accept your hardworking excuse. It's not an excuse, but it's not an excuse. All right, I'm done. I can't believe I'm putting up. This is egregious levels of blasphemy, Frosty. All right, guys. What does this say? Basically, pick 2 of the 4 options. Yeah, if it's my suggestion, Sean, I'm playing Stafford and Cook this week. Tip of the horn says DeMario Douglas, Tank, and Downs standard start 2. If I'm starting 2 of those 3, I'm playing Tank, Dell, and Downs. All right, guys. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys. Peace.